engineering that I got in 2013.
That's too crazy. That's too crazy. And what was you did teach at an HBCU or do you still
I'm
teach there?
still I'm still teaching at HBCU. In fact, I just got out of class. Literally, I teach a signal systems and transformations class. So I teach three core classes over at Morgan State University in the School of Engineering. And so I that's what I do full time. I'm a full time lecturer over in the School of Engineering at Morgan.
Well, shout out to Morgan. I know so many, I happen to know a lot of really smart black people who teach at Morgan. Isn't that funny?
Yeah,
Seriously.
Dr. Ray Wimbush, he's over there. A lot
I
of our
never
scholars.
I
Yeah.
don't I don't know. You have to introduce me to them. The people I know are like random people.
Ah,
Nobody knows who they are. I just happen to know them. But I was like, I feel like keep meeting all these people at Morgan. That means I got so God is trying to tell me something. He's telling me I need to go visit, hang out.
come up
So
there. We would love to have you, Doc. You got to come through there. I would love for you to come up there and speak to the class.
we gonna do
I
it.
would love it. I would love it.
All right. So what do y'all think in the chat? Y'all think I should go? Give me a yes if you think I should go to Morgan, and give me a yes if some of y'all might come up there and support and hang out. Let me know if we roll through more.
Yeah.
Should we go and just rock that campus?
Come
Just
on, pull
wake
up.
some people up.
I like in look in the words of the young folks, pull up. You know how they say pull up, pull up.
That's right. We're gonna pull up. I'm pull up like Snoop did in Baby Boy. There we go. Oh, so let's start there. You and I, there's so many things I want to talk to you about. First off, Dr. Ma'at does extraordinarily good content, and she is
Thank you,
incredibly
Doc.
talented at what she does. We gave her an award at the All Black National Convention. You said you had it. There we go.
Oh, right here.
Yes,
Oh, this is one of the
yes.
most I'm tired, one of the happiest moments of my life.
It was well deserved, well earned. We didn't even give you nothing. I mean, you earned every bit of that because you're dedicated to our people, and that's something that's as you all know, that's yeah, that can be tough to do because not everybody's on the same page.
Yes, it
And
is.
Dr. Ma'at, not only are you dedicated to our people, but you are well qualified in STEM. You're doing extraordinary work with our young people in STEM. And I want to start there with a question about something I just saw. I saw a lady, and I didn't verify the stats, but it didn't
Mhm.
sound completely off base just because I've seen what's happening like in Chicago public schools and other places.
Mhm.
And she claimed that only 3% of Black graduating seniors are even qualified mathematically to pursue a career in STEM. That it's gotten that bad, that only 3%, 97% of them couldn't even go into STEM, at least with the skills that they have at that point, because the school system has betrayed them so badly, or something's betrayed them. I don't know if it's the schools. I don't want to blame anybody, but it's or the teachers. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm just saying that these kids are coming out and they just ain't ready. Have you observed anything like that? What are your thoughts?
At Dr. Watkins, that is 1,000% correct. We're seeing that on the collegiate level. It's not that our children can't successfully matriculate through a STEM program. They can do it. They're just not being prepared to do it. And that is why my team and we started, that's a part of one of the reasons why we started Conscious Ingenuity, to make sure that our children have those skills so they can successfully matriculate through any STEM program. So that teacher was 1,000% correct. Most of our children, by the time they finish high school, they don't even get past algebra 2. In order to be successful in STEM, when you get to college, we want you to place in math 241, which is calculus 1. So in order for, and I'm not saying if you don't take calculus in high school, I'm not saying if you don't take calculus in high school, you're not going to be, you're not going to successfully matriculate through a STEM program. The highest math that I took was trig. And that's because Dr. Watkins, speaking candidly to you and your audience, I went to Polytechnic, which is a STEM focused school. At that particular time, I'm in Baltimore now. So I'm coming out there, I'm fighting and doing all kinds of stuff. They kicked my butt right out of that school and they end up putting me in my zone school, Woodlawn, and I finished there. And at Woodlawn, the highest math that I took was trig. And so when I got into the program at Morgan, I was behind, but I wanted to catch up. And I had a really, really good support system of professors, peers, my family who said, you can do this. And so I just stuck with it. And it took me some time. I had to go to school during the summer. I had to go to school during the winter break, but I was able to catch up with my peers. A lot of our children get frustrated in college, and 40% of our children, Black students, change their major from STEM majors to non-STEM majors. So they leave
Mhm.
engineering and they go, and I'm not throwing daggers at anybody else's major, but they'll say, oh, doc, engineering is not for me. I'm going to go down to the School of Business where they're teaching, information technology, which is less technical. I'm
Mhm.
hearing now they have these cybersecurity classes in the School of Business now, so it's taking students away from the School of Engineering, because now these students are like, I can't get past the math. I keep failing calculus. I keep failing statistics. And so, yes, that teacher is 1,000% correct in saying that our children are unprepared. And let me say another thing, Dr. Boyce Watkins: reading comprehension. So at
Mhm.
that level, we're recognizing that our children are struggling in math, which is preventing them from successfully matriculating through the program. And we also see a lack of reading comprehension skills. I tell my students often that 95% of your job is going to require you to read. You have to
Mhm.
read the project description. You're going to have to read articles. You're going to have to do research, R&D, research and development. So our children are struggling with reading. So I tell all of my parents, please, parents, this is Dr. Ma'at begging you, please, if your child is interested in pursuing a STEM career, every day in your household, make sure your children are reading. I don't care if it's nonfiction or fiction. I don't care if it's a quick article, a novel. Make sure they read something every day and ask them questions about it. Have discussions to make sure that they're understanding what they're reading, okay? To strengthen their reading comprehension skills. And then make sure that they're doing math, okay? And there are plenty of tools. I want to definitely plug a brother by the name of Professor Akil Parker. This brother's out of Temple University. He has a YouTube channel called Histomatics, where he's teaching parents how to incorporate math in your everyday life. You could be riding down the street looking at a license tag number and say, add up all of those numbers, and just tell your child. So now you're working on addition, or you might say multiply those first two numbers. So he teaches you how to incorporate math in your daily life. So you have Professor Akil Parker. You have Khan Academy. You have another software called Alex, Aleks. My son is on Alex every day. So these are things we could be doing at home to make sure that our children are prepared to pursue a STEM degree and career.
I really love that. I love that. It's funny when you talk about like that first calculus class you take as an engineer. I taught that class at University of Kentucky, and I remember it was specifically designed to be a weed out class. Like it was
Yes.
like we were going to put them through hell, and whoever couldn't survive, you was going to have to go home because we had too many people trying to be engineers. So they specifically told us, they said drill them. And it was so interesting because the funny thing, the inside joke on that class was whenever every semester there would be some kid or two or three that would come up to me and say, well, I just want you to know I already took this in high school, so I already know everything you're going to teach. And I would be like, oh, really? And I'd be thinking, oh, okay, so you're the one that's gonna fail out because
Yes.
you're walking in with the wrong attitude.
Yes.
And so but you are right. And then what would happen, and I was a business major, is I remember it was almost like the business school became kind of almost like this graveyard of broken dreams for all these kids that used to be engineers or used to want to be engineers, right? So they go to school of engineering, get the feelings hurt because that was the side of campus where they really made you learn. Like they really, like you get a real skill as opposed to like no disrespect to my business management
No, no,
majors.
no, yeah,
Yeah,
no.
yeah, right, right. But it's kind of like it's a little fluffy. It's not specific. Whereas engineering's pretty intense. My friends that studied engineering were challenged, but the benefit though is that you're getting these skills in terms of logic and just the ability to really just process information in a special way. So when I got to my doctoral program in finance, the best students in our class a lot of times were the students who studied engineering in undergrad. I thought studying business would get me ready to get a doctorate in finance. No, if I could go back in time, I would have majored in engineering or math or some hard concrete science, not business school. So I was when you told me you had a PhD in engineering, I instantly respected that because I know how hard that is. Because you know how it is. You got a lot of people call themselves doctor this and doctor that, and it's like, yeah, that's cute. Whatever you do, that's real cute. But when you say you have a doctorate in engineering, I'm like, oh, okay, that's like somebody say, okay, I did 5 years in Rikers Island. Okay, you went, you put in the work, you went through the fire. So tell me about that. Like, tell me about you in terms of just that process. What even led you to even pursue something? I imagine that your field was not just boiling over with Black women getting PhDs
Not
in
not
engineering.
at all.
How did that happen for you?
Not at all. And great question, Doc. Two things I want to say. Sister Ann in the chat, she talked about STEM or STEAM. Me personally, if you go to my website, consciousingenuity.com, I have a double A in it. Science, technology, engineering, art, agriculture, and mathematics. So I just wanted to be clear because she was like STEAM or STEM or so for me, I feel like as Black people, we need it all, right? So in order for us to advance ourselves, we need the art, we need the agriculture, we need the science, we need this technology, the engineering, the math. That's one thing. The second thing I wanted to say to you, Dr. Watkins, is you mentioned that going well, when you matriculate through like a STEM program, right? And now I'm intentionally saying STEM, right? So, to Miss Ann. So a STEM program, you develop these skills that you necessarily did not develop. And those skill sets you're talking about, Dr. Boyce Watkins, is critical thinking. I know that a lot of us feel like we're critical thinkers, but we think, but a lot of us don't understand that critical thinking it's a set of skills and it's something that you develop. It's not, I'm not saying that you can't develop it, but thinking, yeah, we have thoughts, some intentional, some not, but critical thinking is intentional. And see, a lot of us, when we enter college, we're used to operating at the lowest level of thinking, which is remembering. And that's what they teach us in the public school system. I'm sorry, the public school system. I'm sorry, Dr. Watkins. So they teach us to operate at the lowest level of thinking. So we remember things, we mimic everything, just like a 5-year-old mimics things. You do this, and the 5-year-old does that. That's how we're taught to operate. But when you get into
You
you
got
know
me
what?
cracking up. You
You
did
know
not
what,
say
Doc?
public food system.
I didn't
I'm
mean to
going.
say that. I
I'm
didn't mean
gonna
to say that.
remember that one.
I didn't
That's. Keep talking.
I didn't mean to say that, Doc. I meant to say the public school system. So we're taught to operate at the lowest level of thinking, which is remembering. You remember. So someone tells you something, you remember it, you repeat it, right? Engineering, science, math, and you have to, in order to be successful in those disciplines, you have to utilize higher order thinking skills. So we had to move from remembering to now we actually have to understand. Then we have to be able to apply what we understand. Then we have to analyze and evaluate what we did, right? And then if you reach the apex of those higher order thinking skills, we might create something new. We may innovate, but that requires higher order thinking skills that we necessarily did not develop as we matriculated through the K through 12 system. And so that's why when my students, I teach electric circuits class. That is the first electrical engineering class that the students take at the ECE program at Morgan. And I tell my students, this is going to be a painful course for you because it's going to require you to utilize skills that you necessarily have not developed. You're not incapable. Don't ever think that. But those skills weren't developed while you were going through the K through 12 process. So I tell them it's going to hurt a little bit. It's going to be challenging a little bit, but you will be okay. So I wanted to say that to you, Dr. Wilkins and Dr. Watkins. And now I want to move into your question. How did I get into engineering, electrical engineering to be specific? I got to give props to my mother. Got to give props to my mom. When I graduated from Woodlawn, I wanted to major in history. I told her, I said, I'm going to school. I'm majoring in Africana studies. That's what I told her. And she said, baby, and my mother, she was a school teacher for, like 20 years in the system. And then she became assistant principal, then assistant to the area executive. So I come from a family of educators and also community activists. So no wonder what I'm doing, It's
Mm-hmm.
not, if anyone who knows my family, they would say, okay, I see why the sister is an educator and I see why she's a community activist. My
Mm-hmm.
father, he's a community activist, his side, community activism. My mother, educators. And hence you have me. So when I graduated from school, I wanted to become a history, a history teacher. And she said, baby, teachers don't make any money, baby. History, you're not going to make any money. So one day she came home with a magazine and it showed the top 10 paying majors. And at the top, it was computer engineering. And I said, well, my engineering is math and science. And she knew I was good in it. And I knew I was good in it. And so I said, well, yeah, I can do this. I can do this. Because at that time, we just thinking about bringing more money into the household. So
Mm-hmm.
Morgan State had an open house. And I'll never forget, we got to the open house. And at that time, they only had electrical engineering. Now they offer electrical and computer engineering. And so we went to the open house and my mother fell in love with the school. She fell in love with the students, because of course, during open house, they showcase the freshmen and sophomore and juniors and seniors. And we walked the building. The building was beautiful. The labs were beautiful. She loved the staff. She loved all the opportunities. And my mother said, baby, you going here. And I said, yes, ma'am. So I get into my major, doc. And about 2 years into my major, I was like, Mom, I'm changing my major. I'm going to math. I'm going over to the math department. I'm out of here. And she said, no, you're going to stick with it. You're going to stick with it,
Mm-hmm.
baby. And I'm glad that I did. Because I developed skills that I necessarily didn't have, those critical thinking skills. And I learned to become a problem solver. And I realized that as an engineer, the skill set that I did acquire, I can apply that to anything that I choose to do.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't always have to be in the context of technology, right? Or science and engineering and math. Anything. I can apply critical thinking problems. I can apply that to anything I put my mind to. And that's what I realized. And that's what engineering did for me. And so,
Mm-hmm.
anyway, decided to go back to Morgan, my alma mater, and teach in 2017. And so I started off as adjunct faculty, and then I was offered a full time position to actually teach. And that was one of the best things one of the best decisions I've ever made. A lot of my friends, they're in industry and they're making like twice the amount of money, three times the amount of money. And they're like, girl, you need to come over here to Northrop Grumman. You need to go over here to Lockheed Martin, or you could be at Boeing, or you could be at HP making 250,000 or 300. I want to be with my people. I love teaching our young people. I see what the problems are, and I'd rather be there in problem solving on behalf of our people than to be somewhere in corporate America.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's that's a great point you make, and great segue into this. Dr. Oya Maat, by the way, that's who is here, and you are would you say a professor of engineering at Morgan State?
Absolutely.
Is that your official title? Okay, and
Absolutely.
also, and then also, here's another thing too, Dr. Maat, that I admire, and why I think you can have it all. I think you can have the best of both worlds because you're not just a professor, you're also an entrepreneur, and you're doing all these other amazing, fulfilling things that you probably would have a harder time doing if you were at Northrop Grumman, right? They're not gonna let you do all this, right?
No.
So in my view, and in case you want to know, this we meet every morning. This is our financial consciousness training.
I
And
love
I'm
it.
sure you have your own definition of what it means to be conscious. I think consciousness definitely connects to even some of the skills you talk about in terms of critical thinking. I think the more critical thinking skill you have, the more conscious you become. You become aware of things.
Absolutely.
You understand how things work and all this, right? And we need consciousness to be at an all-time high for our people because there are so many games that are being played with us, so many traps being built for us, so many cages, that are designed to control us. And what I like about you being a critical thinker and being the scholar that you are is that you're very much aware of this. I mean, you've done some really great work lately. You and I are both big fans of the one and only Dr. Claude Anderson, and you
Yes.
have done some amazing work lately in terms of really highlighting the discussion on reparations and how critical thinking needs to be included in how we even process that. Can you kind of talk about that? Let's start. You start anywhere you want, but I'd love to get your take on where we are in the whole reparations conversation, and why we should even be demanding it in the first place. Let's start there.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Dr. Watkins. And I couldn't agree with you more when you said that to be conscious definitely um, includes, developing and operating with critical thinking skills. So you and I, our definitions are very, 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 very similar. But thank you for actually inviting me on to talk about reparations, or to contribute to the reparations discussion. Doc, that's something that should be at the top of our list of priorities as Black people. Reparations. That should be at the top. And I just want to reiterate that. That should be at the top of our priorities. I was reading a book some years ago. Salute to Nana, Dr. Amos Wilson. I'm a huge fan of his work. Dr. Amos Wilson wrote a book, 868 pages, called Blueprint for Black Power. And
Yes.
when I say that I studied along with the group, and guys, you can go to YouTube, type in RAM, the RAM Book Club, and type in Blueprint for Black Power discussions. And we discussed every chapter. We met every Sunday for 8 months, and for 2 hours just studied, Dr. Amos Wilson's work. And in that book, Dr. Amos Wilson made it clear that most of our social issues are tied to our economic issues.
Mm.
We had to get our finances in order. People talk about, politicians and politics. Well, goodness, if we had some money, Doc, we could influence these, Claude Anderson say, he talks about this ladder. I love Dr. Claude Anderson. He talks about that ladder. He says, get your economics together. You move up to the next level. You can go buy a politician that's going to do what you want him or her to do. So we have to get our finances in order. So how do we do that? Reparations. And some of you are naysaying, oh, Dr. Mott, we ain't going to do that. That's a pipe dream. No, it's not a pipe dream. People have sued for reparations and have gotten it. Okay. People have done it. I always encourage folks who are naysayers, Dr. Watkins, to just Google people like Belinda Sutton. This was a sister. She was born in West Africa. She was captured and sold into slavery before she was 12. And she was enslaved by a family in Massachusetts called the Royal Family. But the Royal Family, their assets got seized because they were loyalists. So the government found out that they were loyalists. So they seized their property, and they also manumitted their enslaved people. And Belinda was one of them. So you can go online and just Google Belinda petition. She actually signed a petition. She petitioned the government for what we would consider now reparations, and she did it multiple times. And so this woman this is the first known case of a freed person obtaining financial reparations for slavery. You also have another sister, Kylie House. She started an entire movement. She helped to found an entire movement called the National Ex-Slave Mutual Relief Bounty and Pension Association. And she was able to get over 300,000 members who actually paid dues. And so this was the first mass reparations movement that was led by us in this country. Now, they did get her for mail fraud and they imprisoned the Dr. Watkins, but people sued. I just want people to know that it's doable, that we can do it, because you have a lot of folks, Doc, who don't feel, they have that self-defeating mentality. Oh, we're not going to do it. We can do it. And then you had other groups of people, who got reparations. There was other groups of people. You had the Japanese, the Native Americans. You had the survivors of police abuses in Chicago, victims of forced sterilization, the Black residents of Rosewood in Florida. They got reparations. So it's possible we can get it. So to answer your question, Doc, because your initial question, you said, what are reparations? And, just defining it, what is it? And why should we get it? Why should we get it? And the definition that I take is from Dr. Darity. Dr. Sandy Darity in his book.
Yeah.
Oh man, I got his book on my shelf, Doc. And I was
I,
trying to
I
get my
never
little
I
books
never met
together.
him, but I've admired his work for a long
Oh,
time.
what was the name of the book? I feel so bad. Oh, From Here to Equality. From
Mm.
Here to Equality, reparations for Black Americans in the 21st century. And I hope I didn't butcher it. Family, throw it in the chat. Google Dr. William Darity's book. Throw the correct title in the chat if Dr. Ma'at butchered it. But I feel like it's From Here to Equality. reparations for Black Americans in the 21st century. And he talks about how reparations is redress, is repair from the atrocities that occurred. Dr. Watkins, that's what it is. And it was a lot of things that happened. It's not just slavery. I know a lot of people like, oh, it's slavery. It's not just slavery. It's slavery and everything that came at it. It's slavery. And as Dr. Claude Anderson says, it's semi-slavery. Jim Crow was semi-slavery. It was slavery. Then you had systemic racism. You had policies that were passed that created this enormous racial wealth gap. So Dr. Darity says, man, reparations should close the racial wealth gap. So whatever number, and I'm not talking about in the thousands, Dr. Watkins, because some people want to call a reparations program, Dr. Ma'at, in California, they're giving people $1,000. That's a reparations program. That's not a reparations program. Oh, Dr. Ma'at, they're giving some citizens over here $500. That's no, a reparations program should be designed to close the racial wealth gap that exists between Blacks and whites. That is an effective reparations program. It has to close the racial wealth gap that exists between us and them. And we're talking trillions of dollars, Dr. Watkins, not thousands, hundred thousands, not millions, billions, but trillions of dollars. Seems like you want to jump in there, Doc.
No, I mean, let me jump in on that point. My conclusion on this, Dr. Mott, is that that's a big part of the reason that our reparations case is seen so differently by the world, not just because I'm just convinced that the world just does not like Black people. We love everybody else. We give them our money, give them our votes, and don't ask for nothing because we try to be accepted so badly. But I don't think they like us very much. But on top of that, if you compare the amount of money that they owe us, if you compare it to what they gave the Japanese, or even compare it to what they gave the Holocaust survivors, it's of many orders of magnitude higher. It's an amount of money that would be about a third of the national debt. I think that the national debt's 37 trillion, and we really are owed about 14 trillion. That's the estimate that I've seen. And so I think that that's part of it too, is that the amount is just so massive that they're like, what the hell are we gonna do with this? What are we gonna do with this? And but that doesn't mean we don't have the conversation. We don't keep pushing the issue. And
Absolutely.
one of the things that's interesting, I'd like to get your take on this, is I think critical thinking skills from people like yourself and others is important in this discussion, because they're gonna come up with some BS. When they finally submit, because you see in California, we get the folks out there in California ain't playing. They are not. Shout out to the Black people in California. They are getting in these politicians' faces. They are telling them, we're gonna take your vote. And actually this week, Dr. Cornel West is gonna be on here on Monday, I believe.
Beautiful.
His wife texted me. I think it's Monday. And so the movement's kind of happening. And I think that to your point, I'd like to get your thoughts on this. Critical thinking skill is important because we have to really sort of be clear about what we really want. I think really people like yourself have to be involved in the conversation. People like a Dr. Claude Anderson, I'd be happy to contribute. Sandy Darity and others, and what they're not gonna do that. Well, or they finally start having that conversation, they're gonna say, okay, Al Sharpton, what do you think we should do for Black people? And that's not appropriate. Can I get your thoughts on some of that?
Absolutely. And right now we're hearing all kinds of proposals. I know that Kamala's pitching her opportunity economy. I'm not clear on what Donald Trump is proposing, but I know
think he
that
had the platinum plan.
Oh, so he's still doing it. He's promoting the platinum plan.
I don't know if he's still promoting the platinum plan, but I imagine that comes with a free grill if you want to get a new grill like Dame Dash or something, but
yeah, so absolutely. So they're coming with these plans, and Doc, I'm telling you, you're reading my mind. Everyone in your class who, this is a finance class, please get the color of money, Black banks in the racial wealth gap. And I know when I go like this, because of the screen, it looks like the words are in reverse, right? But it's called the color of money, Black banks in the racial wealth gap. Because a lot of the stuff that they're proposing, Dr. Watkins, they've been doing this stuff since the 1800s. A lot of the stuff, we'll give you a community bank. Oh, we've been down that road before.
Mm.
with community banks. You know, we've been there. So a lot of the stuff that they're proposing, we've been there, done that, and it end up, you know, we end up not becoming the beneficiaries. Everybody else benefits but us. And that's what's happening. So you have to apply critical thinking to these policies that they are proposing because, you know, they're really slick, Dr. Watkins, with the language. So
Mm.
they'll say, well, you know, we know that, and I'm not going to say any names because I know you said you didn't want to make this a politically charged discussion, but they'll
Well,
say things like, oh, well, Freedmen's Bank, you know, even though, you know, it was, you know, created, you know, for free, formerly enslaved people, we want to open it up to everybody. And they'll start talking about
yeah.
minorities. And before you know it, everybody's benefiting from something that something that was created for us. And see,
Mm-hmm.
that's when critical thinking comes into place. We got to be able to carefully analyze these policies and how they are going to impact us directly. And when you
Mm-hmm.
start reading the fine line, you say, this is not a good, it sounds good on the surface. And I don't want to get
Mm-hmm.
into other policy, $25,000 down payment. It looks good on the surface, but when you start reading between the lines, and again, that's your critical thinking kicking in, you say, okay,
Mm-hmm.
this is not really a good policy. This is not a policy that's going to impact Black people the way they think. This is really going to impact middle class, not the working poor, but the middle class or upper middle class, or it's really going to impact, you know, other minorities, right? The
Mm-hmm.
immigrants that are coming, the migrants that are coming over, you know, not non-Black people. And so you start seeing that when you critically think, when you critically analyze these policies that they are proposing, Doc.
Mm. Well, Dr. Oyamad, I'm gonna keep saying your name because I want everybody who's coming in late to know who I'm talking to. Um, so that's a good point, Dr. Mott. And one point that you made that I thought was interesting is you talked about how the whole conversation on reparations has been racialized.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
It's now become a Black thing. You know, when people think about reparations, they have racialized reparations. They think that it's a Black thing. If you talk to, see, a lot of people talk about how we have been miseducated. They have miseducated us, and we start talking about the miseducation of the Negro. I mean, miseducation of the Negro, right? By Dr. Carter G. Woodson. They have miseducated us, but we have to understand that white folks they're just as miseducated as we are. White
Mm,
ignorance is a thing, and the media is complicit in that. The media and the
mm,
education system, they are complicit in maintaining white ignorance. And so
mm,
white folks, the average white person, when they hear reparations, they think of Black people in slavery. They're not
mm,
thinking of, you know, a debt that's owed, something
mm,
that must be repaid because of an atrocity that happened. That's not racial. That's a human thing. It's not, reparations isn't a Black thing, but in the minds of the average white person, when they hear reparations, they think Black people in slavery, and it's a human thing. It's a debt. It's the I don't want to frame it as anything moral because it is a debt, but it's the
mm,
right thing to do, and it's a debt that's owed that must be repaid. It must be paid. And so that's what I meant when I said, Doc, they've had racialized reparations. So to the point where in the minds of white folks, they think it's a Black thing and it's a slavery thing. No, it's a debt and it's a redress, it's a repair thing. That's what it is. And so that's what I meant by that. And Doc, I wanted to say something that I did not mention earlier when I was talking about why we're old. I mentioned slavery, I mentioned Jim Crow, I mentioned systemic racism. And because of all of those things, we in the Black community, um, we lack transformative assets, and
mm,
we also lack parental welfare. This was a book that really helped me understand what is going on, the condition of us, why we are what we are. It's called The Hidden Cost of Being an African American: How Wealth Perpetuates Inequality. This book is
mm,
a must read. And what it helped me to understand is that literally, because of the color of our skin, because we are Black Americans, when we're born, we're born with a cost. It's a cost associated with being a Black American. That means that more than
mm,
likely in your family, you don't have transformative assets, and you probably don't have parental welfare. Now, let me define real quick, Dr. Watkins, what I mean by transformative assets and
Mm.
parental welfare. It says right here, says to get a better analytic handle on this phenomenon, he said, I will use the concept of transformative assets, inherited wealth lifting a family beyond their own achievements. I'm going to say that again. It's wealth lifting a family beyond their own achievements. See, a lot of white folks, and in this book, I saw it, a lot of white folks, that in terms of income, they make what we're making or less. But the difference between us and them is that they have transformative assets. So they might be living in great grandma's house or great granddaddy's house that's paid off. So guess what? They don't have a mortgage. They're just paying land taxes and utilities. When it's time for their children to go to college or their children to buy a house, they can just grab the equity out of grandma and grandpa's house.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
average Black family does not have transformative assets that we can use to do things like that. And then
Mm-hmm.
also parental welfare. Let me define real quick what parental welfare is and give thanks to my mother. I got a lot of that parental welfare growing up. You know, my mother, she struggled, she did, but she was, here it is. I think it's page 61. Hold on, Doc. I want to get the right definition for parental welfare. Yeah, parental welfare. It says, well, they call it parental wealth. So it says the name of the chapter says parental welfare, but it says parental wealth. The parental wealth measure captures the capacity of parents to give their children a head start on life. So being able to buy your child a car, give them a decent savings account, some stocks. And you talk about that a lot on your platform, Dr. Watkins. And I've been listening to you over a decade. That's why my son Jalen to this day has stocks. He's on Robinhood. He has over 250 shares of stocks and he's 14 years old. And I did that because of listening to you. That is parental wealth. Okay. The measure, it says, is a measure that captures the capacity of parents to give their children a head start on life. A lot of us did not have that. My mother did not have that. My grandmother was born in 1933. And during that time period, Black women could do two things: domestic work or be school teachers, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
my grandmother was a domestic worker. She dropped out of school in the fifth or sixth grade. She worked on what she called the tobacco farms in Sumter County, South Carolina. That's where my maternal lineage is from, Sumter County, South Carolina. So she worked on what we say the tobacco farms. And so she had to do that, and she did not graduate from high school. She ended up relocating. She was among that great migration that took place between 1915 and 1970, those Blacks that left out of the South and they went to different places. And she was among, I think, the second wave of the great migration. She ended up in Baltimore, and she used to clean the homes, my mother said, of Jewish people. She would scrub their homes for work. And then she ended up getting a job working in the laundry department at Shepherd Prayer Hospital. So my grandmother she could not give her 7 children parental wealth, but what she did was make sure that all 7 of them graduated from high school. And then my mother went on to become a teacher. And one day, she actually taught her mother how to read and write. So my grandmother could not give her the parental wealth, but she gave her the guidance, the wisdom, and the knowledge to get ahead. And in turn, my mother was able to give me some parental wealth, which is why, and my father, which is why I'm sitting here today. So that's what happened with us, Dr. Boyce Watkins. So in our families, we lack a lot of us, the average Black family, lack transformative wealth, transformative assets. And we also lack parental wealth, a parent being able to give their children 20, 30, 40, 50,000 for a down payment. And I always say this, and I'm going to land my plane. The baby boomers, give thanks. This is the largest wealth transfer ever. The baby boomers were the first generation. They got their homes. A lot of them, their homes are paid off. They got pensions. They're retiring. They said that this is the largest wealth transfer in American history. So if you're not tied to a boomer that has these things, then what will become of you in years to come? I'm going to land my plane.
Mm. I love it. I love it. I hope y'all understand why I was so happy to bring Dr. Maad in here. Give her flowers because that's such valuable information. And you're right, that wealth transfer is happening now. The boomers, it's actually starting as a wealth transfer from men to women because men we don't take care of ourselves and we end up croaking and then we give our money to our wives. And then it's going to be a transfer from the boomers to Gen X. That's our generation
Right.
and it's in the trillions, the absolute
Yeah.
trillions. So women, I think, will have probably more economic power than they've ever had in history, which I ain't nothing wrong with that. And then also, there's whenever there's a wealth transfer, whenever money's moving around, there's opportunity there, there's possibility there. And one thing that's interesting, Dr. Mott, when you talk about things like reparations, is I sometimes I'll be walking. One time I was walking through Denver and I just looked around and I looked at all the skyscrapers I saw in Denver. Oh, there's so many buildings. They don't have actual skyscrapers because they have
Mhm.
laws where the buildings can't get too tall because they want to be able to see the mountains. But any city, you look at all the big buildings that cost, hundreds of millions of dollars, some of them billions of dollars. And I say, isn't it amazing that we don't even think about the fact that if I do that, if I go through New York City and just look at the thousands of skyscrapers that there are,
Mhm.
I bet you almost none of them belong to black people. Not
Mhm.
one, right? And really, in a perfect state of the world, we would own 10% of those. You could every 10 buildings, every 10 skyscrapers, you say, oh yeah, there's a black family that owns that, or there's a black owned corporation that owns that. But we were just locked out. We were locked out of the multi-trillion-dollar thing called America. And now we've sort of been brought in, but we're brought in as the servants, as the slaves. We're brought in kind of in the basement of America. And that's what integration was all about. Integration was about them sort of we were kind of brought in the way the immigrants are kind of being brought in. Like they're not letting people across the border so they can go take over companies and own property. They're bringing them in so they can go pick grapes and tomatoes and that's why they want everybody coming in. And I feel like in a way that's kind of like we were kind of originally in that group where they were like, yeah, we want black people here, but only because we need them to strengthen the economy.
That's
You
all it
know,
was.
and this is one of the big tricks when you talk about the public fool system. You are being fooled because the goal of that system is to make sure that you play your position, that you know your role. When I mentioned earlier that the world doesn't like black people very much, I don't think they always dislike us. I think they like us as long as we know our place. You know,
Absolutely.
right. If you showing up, if you're a black man and you showing up as an athlete, a comedian, or some toxic rapper that's rapping about murdering black people, oh, they're gonna love you. They'll give you lots of money and tell you how great you are. But when you show up as a critical thinker and you start saying, "Well, I don't want to, I can't rap, and I don't want to rap about murdering my own people. Maybe
Right.
I'll rap about murdering your people. How about that? Right? Right? How about we rap about getting some revenge? Right? And then suddenly everything. Oh no. We okay with you talking about killing black people, but you talking about killing us, and that ain't cool. We can't pay you for that, right? So really, and again, just to be clear, I don't want to kill nobody.
Right.
I'm
No, 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 no,
we
no.
just here. We here just talking. We gonna murder them with knowledge. That's what we gonna do. But
That's right.
anyway, so the point of the matter is to say that this speaks to, and I think that you are among the most qualified to address this issue.
That's
We got
true.
to educate our own kids.
That's
I,
right.
I I just I don't understand why we can't embrace that idea. We just have to be able to think outside the box. It may not necessarily show up in the form of us building a bunch of schools per se, even though that's possible. But until then, you got a lot of things you actually, and I'd love for you to talk about some of that, like Meltrek and some other things that you have in place. You have a professor. You are a professor. You have a real PhD. I have a PhD. There are thousands of us out here that are good educators who have stuff in place that our people can embrace. Tell us about what you're doing. And then I'd like for you to address sort of the psychological hurdle of us even believing that we're capable of educating our own. Please.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, Doc. You just be like, like you throw me the ball. What they call it? The alley oop. Is that what they call it? You just
Yep.
go like that, Doc.
I'm Steph
Boom.
Curry and I'm gonna throw it up in the air.
Yes.
You could
I'm
be
just like,
LeBron
yeah.
or what's the one that plays for the Chicago Sky? I forgot. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but I'm just like, thank you. Like this is right up my alley. Yeah, educate. We have to educate our babies. Right now, 83% of teachers in the public school domain are white. What is that saying? That's saying that the responsibility and of the development of the mind of Black children are in the hands of middle class white women. I want you to think about that, Dr. Watkins. 83% of school teachers are white middle aged women. What does that mean? That means that the future consciousness of us, Black people, is literally in the hands of white women. And you all should read the book, They Were Her Property by Dr. Stephanie Rogers. Oh boy. Anyway, in the hands of white women. And so we had to take ownership of developing the consciousness of our children. That's their education. Education, see, a lot of us think it's just something that you get, it's the passport to a great future. It's just something you get. Man, when you educate someone, you're socializing this individual. You're grooming this person to think a certain type of way. You are you are embedding the culture in them, politics. What a worldview is being developed. It's so much that happens during the education process. Values, morals, worldview, goals. All of this happens during personality. I'm sorry, Doc. I just get excited. Personality. All of these things are being inculcated in that person when you educate that person. So when you allow outsiders to educate your babies, these outsiders are in control of your morals, your values, your worldview, your culture. Come on, man. We can't do that. We can't do that. When you talk about Black liberation and sovereignty and advancement, and then you sending your children to be educated by the same folks that you say are oppressing you. I made the decision, or we made the decision in my household, to take my son Jalen out of the full system. Sixth grade year, I had enough. He was 11 years old. I had enough. And I put our son in the Uhuru Academy. The Uhuru Academy, I always say that's the number one if Black online education school. The Uhuru Academy, which is run by a husband and wife team, Baba Amin and Mama Nkoyo. Jalen is now 14. This is his third year in the school, and he loves it. He loves that it is centered around our history, our culture, our psychology, and our interests. Our children need to be in our schools. And I know some of us used to say, well, I don't live near an African center school or a pro-Black school. I don't live near one. Black center schools are online now. And during the pandemic, we didn't have a choice, Dr. Watkins. Remember, during the pandemic, they shut the school system and they were teaching online. And so people say, well, Doc, well, what about the social aspect? Your child is doing, he's doing, school online and he's getting that. But what about his social life? He has a family. He plays football during football season, basketball during basketball season. He goes to church with my mother. He's active in the community. During the summer, he attends 2 to 3 summer camps. So he has a social life. So a lot of us, Doc, we make all kinds of excuses. Well, the real deal is this. We're afraid to change. People are very monotonous. We're used to the same old thing. My mother sent me to public school. I'm going to send my children to public school. We're routine. Humans are monotonous. It's routine. It's routine. No, just because you went to public school, you don't have to send your child. You have options. We have options, and we need to understand what our options are, Doc, and not be afraid to explore our options. Public school is not the only option. We can educate ourselves. We have. What do you think they did? What do you think we did prior to the inception of the public school system? What do you think they did? There's documentation of us on plantations teaching prior, post emancipation. There's documentation out there. People getting all the kids at a schoolhouse, up the street. Or they said one brother was a teacher. He was teaching on a rock. He used to bring the children. They used to bring the children to the rock. And we've always educated ourselves. So I think bottom line is a lot of us are scared, Doc. I mean, let's tell the truth. We are afraid of change. That's what it is. A lot of us are really scared, and we don't want to admit that. We don't want to admit that. We are afraid of change. And we need to overcome that fear and understand that it's our responsibility to educate our babies. It's our responsibility. Our babies aren't even receiving education right now. What they are receiving in the public school system is miseducation. How do I know it's miseducation? Because when they grow up, they act against their own self or best interest. That's how I know they've been miseducated. See, educated people don't do that. When you're educated, you act in the best interest of yourself. And by self, I don't mean individualism. By self, I mean collectivism. So the best interest of self, the best interest of Black people. See, when you act against your best interest, you're miseducated, because
Mm,
educated people don't do that.
mm,
Education empowers you. Miseducation disempowers you. So we have to understand that our children aren't receiving education right now. They are receiving miseducation. They are being trained. They are being schooled. They are being indoctrinated. Okay.
mhm.
And so I land my plane there, Doc.
Yeah, I mean it's to your point, it's you know the power teachers are very powerful because teachers don't just teach you how to do things, they teach you why you should do these things and who you should be doing them for. So sometimes a highly educated Negro can be more dangerous than an uneducated Black person.
Come on.
If you have that education and you've been taught to use all of your skill, all your resources, in to help other people, to do things for other people, and sometimes even against the interests of your own people. I mean, there's a lot of highly educated Negroes that work for BET, who get excited every time the BET Awards get 10 million viewers or whatever, and they made money from all these big white corporate sponsors that say, "Oh, that was great. Bring Sexy Red on. Keep her on there longer next time." And there's no consciousness. There's no critical thinking about the what in economics we might refer to as the externalities, which is like almost like a type of social pollution that you're creating because you got this massive corporate powerhouse that's making all this money, but you're destroying the community in the process. You're creating millions of little girls who want to grow up and ride up and down the stripper pole and get pregnant by whoever, and just whatever, and embrace a culture that is not going to lead them to peace, success, freedom, or happiness. And that's a problem. That's something that people like yourself and I think I feel like it's our job to kind of speak on that. And I know that it gets political, right? Like even when you use a term like school choice, they make that politically charged. Oh, you sound like a Republican. You sound like a Trump supporter. No, no, we want people to be free. Freedom means choice. Freedom means options. Ain't nothing wrong. Ain't nothing. If you got an issue with Black people being free, then I got an issue with you. And so ultimately, another area where they make it political is they might look at you and hear you talk and they say, "Oh, she's from the conscious community." And the conscious that's dangerous. And I don't know if you ever had anybody define you as I've been called dangerous my whole life, and I'm like, where am I dangerous? I ain't hurt nobody. Like, what are you talking about? I love people. I love the babies, and but same time, you got a thug on stage talking about he gonna murder everybody in your whole family, and that's your favorite Black man. But
Right.
I'm dangerous.
Right.
You're
But I'm
dangerous. But
dangerous. But I'm
right, what makes it
dangerous.
well, we know why we dangerous. We dangerous because we see right through your bullshit.
That's
And
right.
you don't like that. You're like, dang, these are our Negroes. We own these people. These are our pets. We got our pets doing exactly what we want. They are well trained to follow instructions, even if it's leading them to a path of their own self-destruct, even if it's taking them all right down the pathway to hell, economic hell, spiritual hell, family hell, social hell, educational hell. We got them trained to ride the stairway to hell.
Mhm.
And here you are coming along upsetting the apple cart. You're just simply waking them up out of the trance and saying, "Hey, why are you doing that? Why would you why would you promote an artist that wants young Black men to die or be hooked on drugs?
That part, Doc.
Why would you dedicate your life to working for businesses that do nothing for your community and are gonna leave you broke after you don't work 50 years? You don't work 50 years your whole life and you got less wealth than a newborn baby. How the hell is that? How's that benefiting you? How's that
Right.
working out for you?
That's right.
And you got 100,000 in student loans from that big white university that overcharge you to go to school. So my thing is, it's a war. It really is a war.
Yes, it is.
And I'll say that I love the fact that I got some fellow soldiers out here like yourself, and everybody in this
Absolutely.
room is
Absolutely.
is is in this battle, and all of you. I know that it takes a special kind of person to participate in conversations like this, because let's just be clear, this is seen as radical. And I'll tell you something.
It is. It really is.
Well, I'll tell you something, Doctor. When I was on the faculty of Syracuse, I remember that was when I met Dr. Claude Anderson in 2006.
Hmm.
And I remember our first conversation. I think I said it was at the Black Family Conference in Louisville, Kentucky, my hometown. And I remember just kind of talking to him, and I said, yeah, well, you know how it is when you start being pro-black, they call you radical and everything else. And he said, ain't nothing wrong with being radical. He said, you're supposed to be radical. You know, he said, that's good. That's a compliment. And it really made me rethink what it means to be radical. He said, because he was like, basically, like, if what are you trying to do? You're trying to just fit in to a system that isn't working and fit
Mm-mm.
into a culture that's losing. You trying to just maintain the status quo? You know, we cannot.
Mm-mm.
What are we going to sit around and be a bunch of conservatives and try to conserve the
Right.
way things are? No, we need to all sort of say, okay, no, we're not doing this anymore.
That's
And
right.
critical thinking to me, and I'm gonna let you. I'd like to let you get the last word, because I definitely want us to know how to follow up with you and stay in touch. Um, to me, critical thinking means that you really assess. The instructions are real simple for me. And
Mm-hmm.
everybody write this down if you have, you may have heard me say something like this before. Look in all the areas that represent your quality of life. I encourage you to start with health, wealth, and relationships. Look
Mm.
at your mental and physical health. Do you feel that the life that you live optimizes your mental health? I say for Black folks, our mental health is not optimized. We
No,
crazy.
not at all.
A lot of us have crazy trauma everywhere. You in Baltimore, people getting
Yes.
shot up, babies getting, crazy stuff,
Yep.
drugs and everything, right? Mental health healing is an absolute must. That has to be
Absolutely.
Yes, that has to be part of our reparations plan. The part that we implement, we gonna implement our reparations. The repair ain't just something that's gonna be done by white folks. We can repair
No.
ourselves as well until they get on board. So mental health, physical health, right? You look at the garbage that they feed us, right? This is capitalism. We're gonna feed you all the cheeseburgers and fried chicken we possibly can until you are 45 years old and you're starting to keel over because you got the health of an 80-year-old, right?
Mm.
So physical health, we have to be conscious of that. And by the way, brother Nuri Muhammad, I spoke to him this morning. He's going to be in next week. I want y'all to know we bringing the heavyweights up in here. These are my seniors
Ashe.
right here. Dr. Maad is one of them. And then you go into relationships, right? Broken families everywhere, trauma, people fighting each other, disagreeing. And I think that's something that I want everybody to evaluate that and figure out, like, what does that mean? Remember, there's a science to that. My wife is a therapist and she's a relationship counselor. So
Mm-hmm.
there is this whole science to how to choose healthy relationships and maintain them. And that starts with family, it starts with your spouse, it's with your friends, it starts with business partners. Me and Dr. Maad have a relationship,
Absolutely.
and there is a protocol, there's a code of conduct that we aim for. In that, she came in and you were giving me all these props and thanking me, and I was like, oh, this is great, and I was thanking you, giving you props, and that's us feeding. We're investing in each other,
Absolutely.
because think about it, process this, Dr. Mott. We could have both been a couple haters. You could be up in here like, who this guy think he is? I'm smarter than him. I'm gonna
Right.
show him up. And I'm
Right.
like, well, she gonna take my spot. She better than me. Whatever. No, like, that's silly, right? Like you
It's
have
silly.
Right, right. So ultimately, it really, and even consciously, like me reaching out to bring you in, there are things we have to. It's interesting, like even little things like I'm gonna be vulnerable and confess that, like, one of the problems I had from my trauma
Mm.
is, I think as a kid I had a thing with rejection. I don't know. I think about a couple things. I got to really figure that out. I'm not going to give TMI because I ain't trying to be too vulnerable right now, because I'm
No, no,
being a,
no. I get it. I'm with you because I
but
had an issue.
really,
I struggled
it,
with that as well. Mhm.
and what it did was it made me like just fiercely independent. Because you don't want to
Mm.
ask for help, because you don't have people just say no or whatever and go through that frustration. So you just say, I got this. I'm gonna do this myself. I'm gonna do this myself. And I
And
found a
mine
lot.
was the opposite. Mine was the opposite, the craving of acceptance, being wanting to be
Oh,
accepted. So you were like, you went one way and you wanted to be independent. You were like, I'm independent. Mine was wanting to feel accepted, you know.
oof.
Yeah.
Yeah, those things, like, these are tough conversations we have to have with ourselves, because if you think about it, I believe collectively as Black people, it's our desire to be accepted that becomes one of our greatest liabilities.
Mm.
That's what causes us to sell out and get excited because because we got an Oscar or a Grammy or Employee of the Year, right? Or
Mm.
when Joe Biden puts out a something and he says, "Thank you to Black people for getting me elected," and we're like, "We did it! Black women saved you again." And I'm not no disrespect, no problem with anybody who voted for Biden, but it
Right,
was
right, right.
like, but before you save him, let's say save yourself.
That's
Save
right.
your kids,
That's
save your
right.
community first, then save him, right? So I kind of feel like we want everybody to tell us that we are important, that we matter. That's why you might see somebody, they'll spend a lot of money buying expensive European products so we can have that label on us to say, look, I made it. I'm important. Look at the car I drive. Look at the job I have. Look at the
Right.
university I attended. Look at the clothes on my back, right? And then the name on the label on these clothes, right? So that need for acceptance, I think a lot of us go through that. And so in fact, one of the most dangerous types of Black people, in my opinion, is one who really knows who they are and has accepted themselves and does not need anybody's acceptance. Then you can
Mm.
kind of walk through the world and you like what? I'm gonna do what needs to be done. I don't care what none of y'all think. Right.
Right.
So
Right.
you are right. So that was the benefit of kind of going in that other direction of rugged individualism for me,
Right.
is
Right.
that
Right.
I trained myself to not give a damn what
Mm.
think about me. I don't care. I don't want to teach at your universities. I don't want to get on your TV shows. I don't want none of that. In fact, when it happens, when they grab me, but here's the problem though. You get too
Mm-mm.
used to that. So like the other day I spoke at a UPS, right? The Black
Okay.
employees invite me in, and I was like, I don't want to go to UPS. Like, my friend had to talk me into it. I was like, I don't want to be around those people. That's the lack of balance though. That's the downside of that extreme. And what I really would like is just to be balanced, where you're not carrying there's so much baggage that comes with being Black sometimes,
Absolutely.
and the last area I'll throw in there, and then I'd like Dr. Mahat to take us out, is in terms of measuring your quality of life. We talk about health, wealth, and relationships. So we talked about health and relationships, and y'all know what it is when it comes to wealth. We got you. We got you. Dr. Mahat knows a lot about wealth. My doctorate's in wealth, and basically at the end of the day, it's real simple. Do you have enough income to cover your bills, ethically? And do you have financial security to protect you in case something goes bad, in case
Right.
that man doesn't want you at that job anymore, or in case something goes wrong in your personal life financially? This is why we invest, and we're doing this for ourselves. We're also doing it for our children because that's what we're going to be. This pain and trauma that we went through in this generation, we're not passing that on to the kids. We're not doing that. So, Dr. Mahat, tell me where people can follow up with you and just see more of what you're doing because your work is amazing.
Before I do that, Doc, I want to give you your flowers. Doc, I'm telling you, you are a brilliant and amazing brother. I've
Wow. Thank
learned
you.
so much from listening. I've been listening to you over a decade now. And let me tell you real
Wow.
quick, just being candid about something. You were promoting Bitcoin years ago. This was years ago. But you were promoting it. I think it was like barely like $3,000. And I kept hearing you talk about it. You was like, I'm telling you, just get a share. And I was like, man, I don't really got the money. I called my auntie up. I'm like, auntie, Dr. Watkins is talking about this Bitcoin. I think we, should invest. I ain't got 3,000. Won't you put up the money? She's like, girl, I ain't got it. Da, 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 da. And then it got up to $65,000. So I wish that I would have called pops and called mommy and got that $3,000 up and got more than that. Because I mean, you've given out a lot of great financial advice. You also talked, and I mean, decades ago, you was like, stop buying your children toys. Don't buy your children toys. Buy them stocks, buy them this, buy them that. Jalen's tell you, I stopped. Nope, we're not doing the games. We're not doing this. For your birthday, you're going to get STEM kits. You're going to get a savings account. So by the time you're 18, you got 10,000 in your savings account. You're getting stocks, STEM kits, and books. And he'll tell you he's in school right now, but I'll bring him on camera. He'll tell you it's stopped. Dr.
Wow.
Watkins, I thank you for the wisdom and the knowledge that you have given the global Black community. This stuff, the stuff that you're doing is global. You got brothers and sisters listening to you around the world. And I just want to say publicly, I thank you for who you are and what you mean to us. You know what I mean? You mean a lot
Wow.
to us. And you've been stomping for Black wealth. You've been stomping. We need to create wealth. We need to create wealth. We need to create businesses. And you've been out there on the front lines consistently consistently. And I want to say I thank you from the bottom of my heart. And also thank you for opening up your platform to me. And this is not the first time you did it. I've been on your platform a couple of times. Like I said, you brought me to the All Black National Convention, put me on the panel to speak on media manipulation, blessed me with a wonderful award that I show my students every semester. I show them this award. Doc, I thank you. I thank you. I thank you. I thank you. And I'm
Wow.
grateful for you. I'm also grateful for your listening audience. You all could have been anywhere right now, but nearly 1,000 of you are tuned in. And this is the place that you need to be for the best advice for you, for Black families. And so you could have been anywhere doing anything, but I thank you for opening up your mind to us. So I always tell people, I thank you for your mind. And I
Mm.
thank you for your behind. The last thing that I want to say is please, family, the last thing I want to say, family, is please support the work. Okay. I'm wearing a shirt that says conscious ingenuity. This is a pro-Black, Black-centered STEAM program that was designed to make sure that our children are prepared to successfully matriculate through these programs when they get to college, through a STEM program, even STEAM programs, just preparing them. So make sure that you get your child enrolled in Conscious Ingenuity. You can go to consciousingenuity.com. And Doc, I know you have the link, so you'll put them in the video. Go to consciousingenuity.com, sign up for our email list. Okay, you'll love the website. I have Black engineers going into our communities teaching STEM, young Black people, 18 to 22. So right now, with Conscious Ingenuity, Dr. Watkins is doing is bridging the gap between Black college students and also in the community, and Black engineering professionals in the community. Because a lot of times they get their degrees, and what do? We go work for white corporations. We forget about the community. We move out to the suburbs, and that's that. Right now, we're bridging that gap. I have students who are working at Northrop Grumman, students who are down. I have one student, he's getting trained in Mexico, but they're in industry. And you know what? They teach for Dr. Ma'at. Even to this day, they teach and they go into the community. So we're bridging the gap to make sure that our children are prepared. So support Conscious Ingenuity. Also, family, support the Meltrek program. Please go to Meltrek 365. Support the Meltrek program. We actually just dropped our third film, Meltrek Exploring the Ma'afa Part 1, The Arrival of the Portuguese. Meltrek is a series that is teaching Black history from a Black perspective. And it's an animated children's series that's doing that. So we're targeting the babies, making sure we teach what we call corrective history. Lastly, family, make sure that you get your son enrolled in the Asafo training camp and your daughter enrolled in the Agoji training camp. These are camps that focus on critical thinking, the development of critical thinking skills, and also character and leadership skills. So make sure you get your baby enrolled in what I call all of these youth empowerment programs. With that said, thank you so much, Dr. Watkins, for having me. Peace. And I always say Black excellence. Peace and Black excellence.
Yes. Yes. Well, by the way, everybody, I put some links in the chat for you all to take a look at. And also we will bring this back so that everybody can get a chance to take a look at this. And also, what is your Instagram, Dr. Mott?
It's
Did,
Dr.Maat underscore. So Dr.Maat underscore. That is my
it,
IG. And also, family, check me out on my YouTube channel, Dr. Oyamaat. All you got to do is go to the search engine, type in Dr. Oyamaat, and it'll pop up. So make sure you check out my YouTube channel.
all right. And you'll see her name on the screen. So give me a quick yes if you're going to go and follow or support something. Let's be conscious and let's be clear. Just give me a yes. Again, you could buy something if you want to, but if you can't, at least you can pay attention. If you can't pay money, just pay attention. Because and the reason it's important, the reason I'm consciously asking you all to put that yes in the chat is because it's not easy to get the attention of our people if you're not into like foolishness and silly stuff and
Right.
destructive stuff, right? And so again, I had no problem with the rappers that have 20 million followers that they're where they talk about their baby's mamas and who they shot yesterday or whatever it is that they might
Right.
talk about. That's fine, they can do what they're going to do, but I really think that we got to bring our scholars to the table. You have thinkers in your community that are really doing great work, that are deeply committed, and Dr. Maat's one of them. I would say thank you, Dr. Maat, for coming in and hanging out with us.
Thank you
It was
so
a
much,
pleasure
Doc.
having you here,
I
and we will
appreciate
do
you.
this again. And everybody have a great day. And I don't know about y'all, but I'm feeling good and black and strong.
Same here,
And
Doc. Same
yes,
here.
yes. And also tonight, Constance Carter. You all have met Constance Carter. That's another person that we partner with who's extraordinary in real estate, stuff like that. She's doing another free event tonight at 8 p.m. on for those that are interested in multifamily property, stuff like that. So I'll text that out to you as well. So have a good day, everybody. And don't forget, if you want to get on the text list, if you are not on there yet, text the word morning, MORNING, to 87948. Text morning to 87948 so that you can remain connected. We'll bring you into the private Zoom and we can do this. We do this every single day, 7 days a
Wow.
week, 10 a.m. Eastern. That's what we do. We're all serious about this. So thank you, Dr. Mott,
Thank
and
you,
everybody
Dr.
have a great
Watkins.
day.
Have a good one.
100%. Yeah,
Peace and
bless you.
love.
All right, take sometimes it makes sense to do that, or you think it's something that you should never do. Is it a hard no? Is it like okay, Chelsea says it depends. Calvin says depends. April, it depends. Mark Marquez says heck no. He's probably thinking hell no. Okay, I see Irma says no. Okay, I see some yeses and some nos. And so what I want to do is kind of, I don't know, this was on my brain today, and I thought this would be a nice topic to drill into in order to just gain some perspective on some of this. So maybe when it comes time to make that decision, you'll have a framework that you can lean on that'll help you decide whether or not it works for you, whether or not it's something that you want to do. Believe it or not, there's financial research on almost everything. There's research on all kinds of topics in terms of what how people respond to money. As you know, money is power. Money is also a source of a lot of emotion. It could be a source of happiness and and feeling good about life, or it could be a source of tremendous distress. And so what I'm going to do is basically explain when you should loan money to relatives, okay? And not so much tell you that you should or should not do it, but just to say that if you ever thought about doing it, there are ways to do it safely, and ways to do it in a way where you're not going to end up hating your cousin for the next 40 years because they didn't pay you back. My grandfather. I've told you how many times. How many of y'all know that my cousin was in that group TLC? Give me a yes if I've ever told y'all that story. I don't know. Some of y'all know me well enough to know the TLC story. But anyway, yeah, my cousin's in TLC, which I think is the greatest female group of all time. Her name was T-Boz, aka Tiana Watkins, and like I felt kind of awkward when I realized she was my cousin because I always thought she was the prettiest one in the group, and but you can't be looking at your cousin like that. That's just weird. And so anyway, the way we're related is our grandfathers are brothers. Her grandfather's name is Sam. My grandfather's name is Matt. And basically, Sam and Matt, the reason I was asking my family, I said, okay, I know we got 10 billion cousins because I mean, they had a lot of kids, generate a lot of generational wealth in terms of children and family. Family is a form of wealth. We've talked about this. We talked about how your family is your multi-million dollar asset, but you have to activate it. It's just like a business or a trust. If you don't put assets in a trust, then a trust has no value. But if you put assets in the trust, you fill up that bucket, then that can become something that is creates generational wealth for the next 100 years. So or business. If you get the business and you work the business and you're skilled at the business, then the business can make you very wealthy. But if you're sloppy with the business or you don't know what you're doing or you don't put the time into it, then it's not going to help you. It becomes a liability rather than an asset. So really, when it comes to family and children, what I encourage you to really, really think hard about is how do we activate this asset? How do we really, take these little badass kids and really turn that into something that's just going to put our family, on fire in a good way. And help us to just really do some amazing things. And I spoke today with a brother that I met when I went to Atlanta. I forget, I don't have his name in front of me, but he was a black man that he happens to be a member of the Nation of Islam, which I told you I think that you should study the nation in terms of their philosophies on family structure, on economics, education, things like that, mental health, because there's a lot to learn there. Anyway, he had 3 kids. He homeschooled all of his kids because he didn't want them to be harmed by the school system. And now a lot of his kids, I think at least 2 of his kids work for him, and he has a very successful construction company that's doing really amazing work. And so, really, ultimately, I encourage you to really understand that children are an asset, but like any asset, you have to activate the asset. You got to work the asset in order for the asset become worth anything. If you acquire an asset and you don't invest in it, it's going to fall apart. So, for example, I was listening to a podcast where they were breaking down whether or not private equity firms are good or bad for business. Is it good or bad when a private equity firm takes over a company? And they point out examples where it was good and examples where it was bad. Like Red Lobster pretty much got destroyed because the private equity firm came in and they sucked the company dry. It's kind of crazy how they do this. They do these things called leverage buyouts. It's crazy, right? So what they'll do is they'll say, we want to go buy Red Lobster. And they'll say, well, we got to borrow $3 billion to buy Red Lobster. So we'll put up three hundred million, and the rest, the 2.7 billion, we're gonna borrow from a bank. But then what you tell the bank is you say, after we borrow this money, Red Lobster is gonna have this debt. Red Lobster is going to go into debt. Not the person who's controlling the asset. The company I'm acquiring is going to take on this debt. So again, these are not specific numbers. The numbers vary from, situation to situation. But basically, Red Lobster is now in debt. Not you, Red Lobster, but you're able to control the company. So they're milking the assets. They're making all these crazy deals where they're just basically sucking the company dry. And then next thing you know, Red Lobster, which was a great business before the private equity firm came along, is suddenly saying, oh, we got to shut our doors. And they're saying it's because we gave endless shrimp. And it wasn't because of the endless or bottomless shrimp or free shrimp, all you can eat shrimp. That wasn't what brought it down. It was basically some moves by the private equity firm that allegedly caused this company to have so many problems. Okay. So ultimately, I think it's like, in a way, you can think about that like with children, where or any asset that you have, if you invest in the asset in a relevant way, where you are pouring something into it consistently, you're not just sort of milking it dry. You can actually create something that's bigger and stronger. Like there's been times where private equity firms took over a company and made it better. Like Burger King, there was one company that took it over, and now Burger King's stronger than ever. And so that can work out very very well. But if you go the opposite direction, where you either don't invest in something, or you're just a taker and not a giver, then that thing's going to fall apart. And this is not just true for economic investments. This is also true for relationships. Relationships. Hey, seriously, has anybody ever had a relationship with a taker? If you're a giver or a pleaser or whatever it is, however you might be defined by your therapist, has anybody ever been in a relationship with somebody who takes? How many of y'all have gone through that? It is the absolute worst feeling in the world. It's terrible. It's not fun. You don't like it. And takers tend to know they know who to go after. Believe me, take it from a man who's had money for quite a while. I can spot a gold digger from a 50-mile radius. I can pick up on it. I can pick up on the women that suddenly thought all my jokes were hilariously funny and that I was the most interesting man in the world and all this other stuff. And it's not, I mean, I don't have a problem with it, right? Because the studies show that the women are naturally attracted to resources and stuff. And I get that. But when I get a sense like, okay, that you're literally looking at me like fresh meat, and you kind of know, like, okay, because this guy has this money, I can buy this and I can buy this and I can buy this and I can buy this. That's not interesting to me, right? And so when I married my wife, I specifically was happy to marry somebody where money isn't that important to her. And also she had her own money, so it wasn't as big of a deal, right? So ultimately, when you're talking about relationships, it has to be give and take. It has to be reciprocal. Some of you have relatives that take. You have people that you've had relationships with that take. And those sorts of interactions don't tend to work. They're not sustainable because you can't take from something forever without replenishing what you take. You can't, I'm gonna stop right there. You can't just keep taking and then not replenish. It's okay to take. See, this is the thing. People think that it's bad to take anything. I had a whole conversation when I spoke at UPS yesterday. I spoke to a young lady, 27 years old. She was a single mom and she was an airplane pilot. So we kind of really had a good conversation about airplanes and flying, because I got my pilot's license, but she's a real pilot. I'm just a student pilot. And she was saying that she said, I really want to fly more, but it's expensive. I said, yeah, it is expensive. And she said, but I said, you're around all these airplane pilots. I just met with all the black UPS pilots the other day. They would love to help you. They would take you up. It wouldn't cost you anything. And she said, yeah, but I really don't know. I really don't like asking for help. And I said, no, 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 no. See, don't think like that. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to take things. You deserve support. You're doing great things with your life. I'm really proud of you. People will want to help you. I said, but if you want to make yourself feel better, make it reciprocal. If you feel guilty about taking, just give. Just make a rule. Give twice as much as you take. Right? So if somebody offers you help, it's not charity, it is mutual support. So when they come in and they say, "Hey, I'll help you fly. It won't cost you anything. We can take my airplane and whatever." Then what you do is you say, "Okay, anything you ever need, I got you." Their birthday comes up, you send them a gift. They have a problem, you step up and you help them as much as they help you, and then it becomes a great relationship. Then you have a web and a network of people around you where everything is beneficial for everyone. It's a win-win-win-win-win. Right? And so taking is not the problem. Taking is not the issue. Taking is only a problem if you're not giving as much as you take. It's only a problem when it's not reciprocal, right? And this is the issue that you run into. This is why a lot of athletes go broke, why a lot of celebrities lose money, is because they're giving, 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 but nobody's giving anything back. Nobody, and part of that is built around how you frame yourself. Some people frame themselves as charity cases. If I have a brother who goes off and becomes a rap star and he's making lots of money, maybe I define myself as a person who can do nothing for him except except be a part of his entourage and just sort of hang around him and wait for him to pay my bills. Right. And that's not effective. What has to occur is that I got to say, okay, how can I help? Maybe you need security. Maybe you need somebody that can cook for you. Maybe you need somebody that can help handle your business affairs. Like, I want to help. I'm available. What you need, cuz what you need. And you have to have a mindset that says, okay, how can I activate you? LeBron did this. LeBron activated a lot of his friends. He didn't want a big entourage of a bunch of people just that he was just throwing money at. He would send them to places to learn skill sets that he needed. I do need a chef. Here, I'll send you to culinary school or whatever. I do need a business person. So I'm gonna make sure you get trained so that you know what to do with my money when I start getting rich. Rich Paul, thank you. That's his name. So long story short, there's nothing wrong with taking. I would think of it almost like when they do environmentalism. If you notice, the environmentalists, I think they have these rules like where like every tree they chop down, the environmentalists worked with the industrialists who want to go chop down these trees. So they have these little rules where it's like for every one tree you chop down, you plant 5 trees or something. So that works out perfectly fine. Okay. So don't think that taking is bad. Don't get to the point where you embrace this rugged individualism where you're trying to do it all by yourself, figure it out all by yourself. That's what a lot of folks do. I think a lot of people get caught up in that nonsense of thinking that they're supposed to conquer the world all by themselves, and that's very lonely. It's very, very hard. It typically fails, and it doesn't work. But if you find good people that will give to you as much as you're giving to them, then that becomes a beautiful thing. Then you can ask for things and it's okay. So let's talk about loaning money to relatives. So one of the things I want to sort of drill into, and actually before I forget, let me give you all this quiz that I created this thing. You can try it out. Tell me what you think about it. But it's a quiz on whether or not your estate plan is properly put together. And so this quiz will allow you to kind of figure out where you are. Remember, building all this wealth doesn't matter if you throw it all away, but when you die and stuff, because we're all going to die. And what's interesting is that a lot of us are not prepared for death. We just kind of, I don't know, think we're going to live forever or something. But you're black, and that doesn't happen for black people or anyone. Actually, no one lives forever. But black people, we kind of die a lot. So it's kind of important for us to kind of have a plan for that, especially if you love your kids and love your family and stuff like that. So in fact, that same single mom, and I hope I invited her to class, so she may be in here. I hope she doesn't feel embarrassed. I won't say her name, but I was talking to her about her. By the way, the link is in the chat. I did tell her, I said, as a single mom, you got to ask yourself, what happens if I'm not here tomorrow? If I'm not here tomorrow, what happens to my child? What happens to my life? Who knows where my bank accounts are? Who knows where my investment account is? Right. So anyway, so there's the link to the quiz. It's in the chat. So feel free to grab it and you can keep it and take it, or you can take it right now. It's totally up to you. And it'll kind of give you a sense of where you are in terms of planning for your estate. And also don't forget, if you want to be on the text list to get invited to this class, just text the word morning to 87948. Text morning to 87948. All right. So here, Here's a few stats on loaning money to relatives. I wrote about it a lot in my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. And you can find a copy of that at drboycebooks.com. And so anyway, here's some data on loaning money to relatives. And I chose to write about this because I've loaned money to relatives before. I still do. And sometimes it hurts your feelings. It really does. Sometimes it's like, damn it, like who built these people that think they can borrow lots of money from you and just never pay it back? Like who created these childlike individuals? I call it childlike. It's a form of what I refer to as economic immaturity, because you don't understand. You're not grown enough to understand that that person who loaned you that money, they need their money. Like, what makes you think that you can take from other people and they're going to be okay? Like, who defined you to be the 30-year-old kid in the family? You're in your 20s, you're in your 30s. It's okay to ask for help. But when you ask for help and then you don't do what you say you're going to do, you don't pay back the money that's owed, somebody has to pay that price. In economics, we have a term that says there's no, or a phrase that says there's no such thing as a free lunch. And that means somebody's paying for that. So the idea that you think that you can take and not give anything, and that somehow it's going to magically get covered for or taken or sort of fixed by somebody else pretty much means that you have what I refer to as a form of economic immaturity. Because economic immaturity is where you're thinking like a child. Children do that. Children are like, I'll make a mess. Somebody gonna pick it up. Children think like, oh well, I need new toys. Somebody's gonna buy it. Not me. Not me. I mean, I just a little kid. And you get these like 35-year-old versions of little kids. Like, I just a little kid. I gonna borrow money. I just gotta pay. I can't pay it back. I don't have no money. Right. So when you don't solve the problem, you're handing the problem to somebody else. And part of what creates challenges in a lot of our families is that, again, you got these grown ass kids, 45 years old. Hey, yeah, I can't, I'm just struggling, cuz I can't come up with nothing. No, that's not appropriate. Because if everybody thought the way you think, then everything would fall apart. Everything will fall to shit. It really goes deeper than that. Even goes, to the point of somebody making a baby and just being like, oh, well, my baby's mamas, they got it covered. They holding it down. They're holding it down because your weak ass can't hold nothing down. Like, that's what they're doing. They're holding it down so you can go play like a child. And they're the ones who figuring out how to go pick up the baby from school, how to take care of the baby when they sick, how to go buy an extra pair of diapers or a set of diapers that the baby needs. I mean, it's crazy to me. And it's not just men, right? It's everybody, right? So it's not just gender specific, but it's a mindset. It's a mindset that says, I am not without accountability. I can add no value to anyone else's life. And if I do have the ability to do something good for the world, I'm going to do it for me. Right? I'm going to do something that's going to give me pleasure, or I'm going to go buy me a new pair of Jordans, knowing that I owe my cousin $400 that they really needed when they loaned that money to me. That is a mindset. That is psychological. That is 100% in your brain, because there are other people who think in the completely opposite direction. There are people who say, gosh, I know you really need your money. I borrowed it from you. I'm going to get it to you as soon as I can. Even if I can't pay it right away, I'm going to do everything I can to try to make this right. I'm going to be accountable to you because I understand my role in the ecosystem. I understand my position on the basketball team. If I don't get the rebound, if I throw the ball out of bounds, or if I can't hit the open shot, then the team is going to lose. You understand? Because remember, your family is your team. Your family's your team. And a lot of your teams are losing because your players don't understand their position. They're not playing their position. They're not playing their role. You're passing the ball and they're asleep on the bench. Or you're waiting for them to play defense with you. You're playing defense all by yourself because they at the club getting high or something, right? So ultimately, this all is a mindset, and this is something that is detrimental. It costs the Black community trillions of dollars. There's so many different reasons that this horrific ecosystem does come into existence, because it's one of these things where you can't sort of isolate the blame. You can't say, well, it's because of these men or it's because of these women, because remember, a lot of these men were raised by women. So you can't say it's just the men, and you can't say it's just the women, because a lot of the women are abandoned by the men, right? And so and I believe that men, we have a certain type of power, and we do set a standard. So if we don't set the standard the right way and show up in the best way we possibly can, then guess what? Everything falls apart. This is where I become the old school Southern black man. I'm not politically correct. I don't give a shit about being politically correct. I believe that the man is the tent pole of the tent. I believe that the father, the man, you got this thing in your body called testosterone. You've got these big muscles and all this, and these other things that give you special skill sets nobody else has. And I believe that you set the standard. You are the tent pole of the tent. So if the tent pole falls down, the whole tent collapses on everybody. If the tent pole is flimsy, then the tent cannot withstand the storm. If the tent pole is short and tiny, then the tent's not going to be very high. So one of the things that I talk to our son about all the time is I say, look, man, you're the tent pole, you're the leader, you set the standard. You're 6 foot. He's 6'9", by the way. So he's not my biological son. I am not capable of creating a child that's 6'9". His father's a wonderful man, but I spend a lot of time with him in the house. I'm his bonus dad, and I love that role. I'm honored to play that role. And I just remember talking to him and saying, look, man, you're 6'9". You're very smart. You're a natural leader, and people sort of follow suit based on what standard you set. So in my view, when you see women around you that need help, you're supposed to step up. You have to be reliable. You have to be sturdy. If you're not reliable and sturdy, then it kind of creates chaos for everybody, and it's really disruptive to the black community because you have to have so many scenarios where women are like, well, there is no man here, so I'm going to be the man. And then it just creates all this awkwardness, because when a real man shows up, then you got two dudes trying to fighting it out for power, which just becomes chaotic, right? So again, this is my personal observation. And probably some of this is a reflection of my own unique experience. So I'm definitely biased, but I'm assuming some of you can relate to this because I think some of you see the imbalance that's occurring in our families and in our communities. So let's start with this basic idea that says if you talk about the financial side, you have to be you have to understand the code of conduct as it pertains to money and as it pertains to borrow money from family. So let me give you some stats on this. Basically, 57%, according to a survey by Bankrate, 57% of people who loan money to friends or relatives said they had negative outcomes, including damaged relationships, resentment, or not being repaid in full or not at all. So that means 57% of people endured what my wife talks about a lot. She has a workbook on this. They endure financial trauma. You endure financial, it's very traumatic when you loan a lot of money to somebody and you have this, this loving, touching, bonding moment where they're like, oh, thank you for coming through for me, cuz I appreciate it. Oh, it's all right. I got you. I love you too. And I just make sure you get the money to the landlord because I don't want you and the baby to get evicted. And then next thing you know, the person disappoints you. Like, it sucks. It's horrible. It's so painful. It just pisses you off too. You're pissed off, but you're pissed off because you're hurt. I had a cousin I loaned a lot of money to one time. He ain't the only one. And I remember that I like came through for him. Like it was like this triumphant moment of like, yeah, we're gonna elevate. We're gonna really do this together. We're gonna really, I want to see you do better in your life. And then the Negro disappeared. Like I didn't see him for 4 years. And when I saw him again, part of me was like, I want to knock you out right now. You sorry ass piece of shit. Excuse my French. It's too early to be cussing. That's how I felt. I was like, wait, we had this bonding moment, and you just lied to me. You just completely just fed me a whole fairy tale. I don't know if you own dope or something, because drug addicts are good liars. I was like, what happened? But then there's the other part of me, the part of me that went to therapy. That see, all of Boyce didn't go to therapy. Only half of me showed up with the therapist. The other half of me needs to. I need to go get him and bring him to the sessions with me. And the part of me that went to therapy was like, well, Boyce, forgiveness is a superpower, and you have to give them grace because not everybody can do everything that they plan to do, and you have to forgive, and you got to move on because being mad is not gonna help the situation. It ain't gonna get your money back, and also it's only gonna hurt you to be bitter and angry. So that was the therapy side of me, but the other side of me was like, I want to kick you in your testicles right now because you lied to me. So the anger that we feel it's driven by hurt. Like I felt that way because I was like so disappointed. Like, damn, man, That was a lot of money, man. And they told me not to loan you the money. I was being stupid to trust you, and I did it. And now I'm looking even dumber because I took a chance on somebody who didn't deserve my support. So what does that do? That then affects how you view loaning money in the future. Somebody else comes along, so with a good, with maybe a good investment idea, or maybe they really need help and maybe they're really going to come through, but you're all bitter, you're all scarred now. So now you're like, I ain't loaning money to nobody. I ain't never loaning money to relatives again. I hate my family. I hate my relatives. F all of y'all. F all of y'all. Right? That's what happens. And you got to think about how toxic and unhealthy it is to go through life. Think about this. The Jewish community, they be loaning money to each other all the time. There's a section of India where they literally own like I want to say like 60% of the hotels in America and like 80% of the 7-Elevens in America or something because they loan money to each other all the time. They do. I forgot what it is. If somebody knows the name of that section, let me know. And I probably got the stats wrong. But they own an insane number of hotels and an insane number of 7-Elevens. Ironically, I have no idea how this happened. And it's because they're loaning money to each other. But you get into like a lot of black families, we like, I ain't never loan. I'll loan money to a white man who I don't even know before I loan money to my own damn sibling because these Negroes ain't nothing. And that's just such horrible energy to have to carry around. It's the Patels. Thank you, Mike. I did so generally speaking, let me go through the stats. Let me lay some of this out. All right. I'm gonna try to get more serious now because I'm in a goofy mood today. All right, so 46% of lenders lost money, according to the same bank rate survey. They said 46% of respondents who loan money to loved ones reported not being repaid. So think about that, that's almost half. That's just terrible. And it's not just black people. This is a survey they took of Americans, period. 26% feel resentment or hurt. I mentioned that there's a lot of hurt when you trust somebody and you go on a limb for them and they completely let you down. And so the question would become like, well, what made me trust you in the first place? That's when you question yourself. But then the question for them is, what made you think it was okay for you to do that? What in your culture? See, culture is very important when it comes to money because in the Patels, apparently the culture is you if you borrow money, you pay that shit back. If you borrow money, you pay it back. You pay what you owe, right? But for whatever reason, in our culture, it's like, maybe I'll pay you back, maybe not. And there's not sort of an understanding of the fact that you're not just going to lose the money there, but you're going to lose the relationship. So loaning money to people that are close to you, it's important to find a way to do it because we have to share resources. That's a powernomics principle. Shout out to Dr. Claude Anderson. But the downside is that it's a highly risky endeavor. It's a highly leveraged kind of thing because so many assets that you have are correlated, connected to what you're doing. So what do I mean by that? Well, you're not just when I loan you money and you're my cousin and we have this relationship and then what happens is by me loaning you money, I'm not just risking the money, I'm risking the relationship. Because if I loan you a lot of money and you don't pay me back, then I lose a cousin and I lose the money. And which makes me a double sucker. It makes me sit back and say, man, what was I doing? That was so stupid. I should have told my cousin no. But then that creates the other alternative where you left somebody you love stranded like that. And it creates a special dilemma for those of you that are doing well. When you got extra money and your family knows that you're doing well, you're doing better than everyone else. So your survivor's guilt kicks in and you want to make sure that you're there for other people, and you say things like little things that don't typically mean anything like, hey, let me know if you need anything. Well, that term means nothing if you're broke. If you have nothing to offer anybody, then if you say, hey, let me know if you need anything, then that's easy. It's easy to say it because you ain't got nothing to give nobody. So it's like a greeting. You just say it, just to say it. But what if you got like $1 million in the bank and you say you talk to your broke cousin because you want to keep it real, you want to be, you want to stay down, and you're like, hey, let me know if you need anything. And then 2 hours later, they're like, hey, we got a situation, and I had a cousin. He would always call me and say, hey, cuz, I got a situation. And I'd be like, oh Lord Jesus. Like I don't want no situations on my doorstep. And so so long story short, I even got to the point where um I was afraid to even say like let me know if you need anything. And that's crazy. That's like a reflection of very awkward trauma, because there was a big burden that suddenly came with even saying that. I remember I saw an old friend from high school, and he was my buddy in high school, but I hadn't seen him for many years, and I saw him in Walmart, and he wasn't doing so good. To be honest with you, he wasn't really big on education or nothing. So he kind of ended up where you end up when you don't make the right choices. And I remember saying, "Hey, all right, man, well, good to see you. All right, well, let me know if you need anything." Why did I say that? He literally called me 2 hours later. He needed me to. He got in a fight with his wife, and he was trying to move out that day from the house. It was something crazy, something really weird. I was like, I don't want to be in the middle of your drama. I don't even know you like that. But it was like that was an example of where even that little statement, like, let me know if you need anything, that can be kind of weird. So anyway, let me read more of the stats, and then I'm actually going to give you a solution. You guys know I want to be solution oriented and not just talk about the problem. So another thing is that family loans often lead to unspoken expectations. Research from the Pew Charitable Trust in 2019 highlighted that people often struggle with unspoken expectations when they loan money to relatives. The absence of formal contracts or repayment terms tends to exacerbate misunderstanding. So that means that if you don't have something written down, maybe a contract or at least something written on paper, then you can have misunderstandings. Misunderstandings are literally the trigger for a lot of broken relationships. But then also sometimes people loan you money and they expect more than just the money. Right. So all money isn't good money. This is a general principle that you have to be really thoughtful about who you take your money from, because when they give you money, many cases there's something else that they expect. So for example, that's why with the All Black National Convention, we don't take any money from corporations. We don't take any money from the government. We don't take any money from the Democrat or Republican parties, because I know money well enough to know that you're not going to write a big fat check without having some sort of expectation that comes with that check. Like, oh, hey, Dr. Boyce, we want to put this person on a panel, or we'd like for this politician to come speak at your event. No, I don't want to hear all that. And I'm not going to be on stage, thanking Walmart for black liberation. That's not something I'm interested in doing. So it's like, you know what? I'll pass on that money. We'll get the money some other way. Same thing is also true when I was Michael Bloomberg gave hundreds of millions of dollars to a lot of HBCUs, and I was very concerned about that. I was happy because it's great. A lot of young black kids get to go to school and become doctors and lawyers and everything else. But also, Bloomberg is a strategic person. He moves in a certain way. He's very, very political. So you don't even have to tell me. It doesn't have to be revealed to me that there are going to be certain expectations that come with this money. I know that if the guy who wrote you a $50 million check calls the president of that university, he can pretty much get whatever he wants, right? If he says, I think this person should be your commencement speaker, then that person's going to be the speaker. If he says, I need you to not bring these ideas in, or not do XYZ, or I heard Farrakhan was coming to your campus and I'm very concerned because he's anti-Semitic and whatever they want to say about him, right? So these sorts of things are very real, and it's very important to understand that when you get money from someone, I think it's really critical to kind of just figure out like what comes with this. And if you don't have that conversation, then you can have a lot of confusion, a lot of misunderstanding. So lack of repayment is very common. A lot of emotional tension is connected to loaning money to relatives, and also formal agreements can really help to kind of clear the process. Now, let me give you a few rules that you can apply when it comes to loaning money to relatives, so that if you decide to embrace a poweronomic strategy and group economics within your family, you will have a pathway to kind of do it in a way that's not harmful to you or that minimizes the damage. Okay. And actually, before I do that, I want to remind everybody, tonight we're doing a stock options training in the Prime program. If you're interested in options and you want to get an invitation, it's not free, but it's worth the investment. Feel free to text the word options to the number 87948, and you can join us in the Prime program. A lot of you are members of Prime, and you can feel free to say something in the chat about your experience, so others will know. But feel free to text the word options to the number 87948. All right, so so here are a few recommendations for how to kind of deal with loaning money to relatives. First of all, you have to have clarity. You have to have clarity. In financial theory, there's a whole set of thousands of research papers written about something that I've talked to you guys about before called moral hazard. Moral hazard. And pretty much one way to define moral hazard is it pretty much says that once somebody has your money, they can pretty much kick you in the butt. Once somebody has the power that you've given to them, they can screw you if they want to. And so, an example of moral hazard would be once this actually happened where a lot of banks made money to, or sorry, loan money to a lot of Central American governments. And once the governments had their money, they pretty much were like, well, screw you. Like we'll pay you when we feel like paying you. Right. And so they had to negotiate and they got just pennies on the dollar on all the money they loaned because these people that had their money were pretty much laying out the terms. And a lot of you have gone through this. Have you ever had somebody where you loan money to and they're really, really polite before they get your money? But what happens after they get your money? What happens? What happens a lot of times after they have your money and you're trying to get your money back? Well, suddenly the attitude has shifted, right? They're not as friendly as they used to be. They used to pick up the phone on the first ring when they were trying to get your money. It was like, sure, anything you need, cuz I'm gonna pay you back on Tuesday, and no, actually I'm gonna pay you Monday because I'm gonna get paid. And as soon as I get paid, I'm gonna walk the paycheck to your job. Where you working? What's the address again? Are you gonna be free at 3 o'clock? Like it's real, like serious and intense and accommodating before they get the money. But then after they get the money, what happens? They kind of slack off because you're generally, when you're loaning money to relatives, typically the people that are coming to you to borrow money, they're not your sturdiest relatives. They're not the ones who are typically on top of everything, because if they've been on top of everything, they wouldn't have trouble paying the rent this month, right? If they've been on top of everything, they wouldn't be behind in their finances every month. So they're already kind of, or before they ask you to co-sign for the loan because their credit's so bad, well, if they'd been on top of everything, they wouldn't have bad credit needing someone to co-sign for their loan. My father used to cuss about that. My father used to get really pissed off when people would ask him to co-sign for stuff because he was like, "Why in the f?" I'm not going to cuss. I'm going to repeat what my dad said to me. But he said, "Why in the f would you think that I believe you're going to protect my credit when you didn't even protect your own credit score? You didn't even protect your own credit score. So I know you ain't gonna give a damn about mine." So you got to remember that sometimes those people, I'm not talking about people who need help every now and then. A lot of us need help. I've borrowed money before. So I'm not talking about you if you're the person that comes through for other people. That's that let's make that clear. But those people that sort of chronically have one disaster after another in their life haven't yet figured out that the number one variable in their life is the person in the mirror. I really feel sorry for people who have one problem after another, and every single time they somehow believe that it's always someone else's fault. That's kind of a hell to be trapped in, where your life is screwed up and you feel like you ain't got nothing to do with it. I got 4 kids and I ain't had nothing to do with it, but you did. You made the kids. Like those are yours. You were there when the sex happened, right? Were you conscious and you were there, right? Nobody did anything inappropriate, right? So basically, generally speaking, the moral hazard issue, let's go back to that, pretty much says that once you let go of that money, you're letting go of power, because money is power. So same thing happens even in dating. You have a guy that's super nice to a lady in the beginning, because even the worst men can be very, very nice. Even the worst women can be super nice in the first 3 or 4 weeks, and then when they get whatever they want from you, sometimes the attitude changes. That's what moral hazard is. Well, the solution to moral hazard is something they call optimal contracting. And what optimal contracting means is it means that you want to set everything up properly before the problems arise. Before you give away the power, you make sure that you put safeguards in place to ensure that they cannot screw you. That's why banks ask for collateral, right? That's why, if you're trying to get married or something and you're afraid of what might go wrong in a divorce, well, that's what prenups are for. My wife and I got a prenup, but it wasn't because I thought she was a crazy gold digger, and it wasn't because she thought I was going to take what she had. It's because she's like, I got what I got, you got what you got. Let's just go ahead and make an agreement now so that we're not trying to figure it out when we're angry at each other in the event that we did choose to get a divorce, right? It's very hard to go back and make that contract with someone you hate. It's easier to make the deal with somebody that you love, right? So while the love is flowing, you go ahead and say, okay, well, you know what? Can we go ahead and just get something on paper? That way we can preserve our relationship and make sure everything's clear. So one of the rules of loaning money to relatives is you got to set clear terms. You got to be super clear about exactly who's going to do what. And what each party is going to do and by when. That's really important. Two, loaning that a lot of people believe you should never loan more money than you can afford to lose. I don't care how bad the situation is. I don't care what promises are made or how sure you are you're going to get paid back. Loaning more money than you can afford to lose typically is a losing strategy. If you consider the fact that half of all the people who loan money to relatives don't get their money back, you're taking a huge financial risk by loaning money that you actually need. And that's just not a healthy thing to do in general. So generally, I've seen people where they understand, like, look, the relationship is more important than the money. I want to not hate you as my cousin, so I'm only going to loan you an amount of money that I can afford to give away. In fact, some people do it just in advance. They say, "Look, don't, no, don't. It ain't a loan. Here, just take this, because just." Or sometimes what I might do is put a condition on it. I might say, "Here, I'm not gonna loan you the whole 3,000 that you want, but I'll give you $400, and the agreement is that you cannot ask me for money again for 2 years or something, right? Or a year or whatever." And that would be my way of saying, okay, now when you come back to me and I tell you hell no, or I say, hey, don't forget what we agreed on, then we're not going to have a further conversation. I don't want to have and I think that's okay, because here's the thing. I like being generous. I think being generous is more natural to the human spirit. I don't like being an asshole. I don't like being stingy. That's not fun. It's stressful. It's like, and think about this. You can ruin the relationship also by being the person who says no to everybody. There are lots of people out here. There are lots of people that are successful or maybe celebrities who cut off their whole family because they're like, I'm tired of people asking me for stuff and da da da. And that's not a healthy energy either. That's a sure, you're protecting you, you're taking care of you, ain't nothing wrong with that. But the world is bigger than just you. You're part of a group. You are part of a team. And I do believe that it's okay to conclude that the star of the team has an obligation to the team as well. Like Michael Jordan can't just say, well, screw everybody else. It's all about me when he was trying to win championships with the Chicago Bulls, because he needed his teammates. Michael Jordan could not win championships by himself. He tried for 7 or 8 years and he realized, dang, I need more. So he needed a Scottie Pippen. He needed somebody getting the rebounds. He needed a Dennis Rodman. He needed those other people, in order to fill in that void, because he never would have won a championship if he tried to do it all by himself. So ultimately, I would say to you that finding the balance is probably the healthiest approach, as opposed to going to one extreme or the other. The extremes would be where you're loaning money to a bunch of people that are screwing you financially. The other extreme would be where you become such a traumatized miser that you completely cut off everybody and just say no to anybody, even the people that have really been there for you in ways that are far more important than money. Like, I'm never going to say no to my parents. I'm never going to say no to my siblings. I don't say no to my children unless it's like a matter of discipline, right? With kids, it's a little different. With kids, you got to kind of make sure they don't get too dependent on things. But balance is the key, and I think every decision can be made independently. And by putting optimal contracting in place and safeguards in place, you can make these investments knowing there's a reasonable amount of risk. I mean, there's no such thing generally. Well, there's rarely such a thing as a risk-free investment. There are technically investments that will be considered risk-free, but for the most part, most investing is gonna have some risk, and some of that risk you cannot eliminate, and so just sort of understanding that this risk is going to occur and these ups and downs can happen is also part of being a healthy human being. It doesn't mean you go through life where nothing bad ever happens to you. It's like, for example, if you never want to ever be in a car crash, then stay home for the rest of your life. Never get in a car. But that's not a healthy life. That's an extremist life, right? So what happens is maybe you get in the car and you drive safely, you put on your seatbelt, and you minimize the risk, but there's still risk out there, right? So in accepting that as a part of life. So also, a lot of experts believe you should discuss the consequences. Like, look, if you don't pay me back, I'm gonna let you know like what's gonna happen. My grandmother, rest her soul, she's right behind me, by the way. That's our Panther. Our Panther's name is Felicia in the Black Business School. My grandmother, her rule was straight up. It was real simple. It was like, if you don't pay back the money I loan you, then I will never loan you money again. And she had people in the family that would come to her to borrow money, and she would say, "You didn't pay me back in 1972, so don't ask me for nothing. Don't ask me for money ever again." And that was her rule. Whatever your rule is, Pick a rule, stick to it. Also, a lot of people believe you could consider alternatives to loaning money. Money is not a final solution to every problem. Money may be part of the issue, but sometimes it's deeper than just the money. Maybe it's there's a way I can help you without necessarily giving you money. Or maybe I use that opportunity. So now that I've got your attention and you want money from me, I'm also going to give you some advice on certain things, or maybe some connections, or share some alternatives that may not involve me giving you a whole bunch of money. So you want to really look at the alternatives, because sometimes when you do get to the point where you have a little more money than the other people around you, it's very hard for a struggling person to hang out with a person who's not struggling and not see that they have resources that they can actually use. And I think it's really, as you get more money, I think you have to be careful about sort of how you engage with other people. You just do. If money's not a thing to me, and I take my buddy on a trip and we spend $20,000, but he can't raise $1,000 for the rent, that's going to create awkwardness when we get home and he says, "Hey, cuz, can you loan me money to pay the rent?" And he knows I got the money. I can't lie. I can't say, "Well, no, nah, man, I'm broke. I don't have the money." Well, he just saw you spend $20,000 going on the trip, right? But you want to spend money on the trip. You don't want to spend that money paying somebody's rent. So it just creates like a lot of strangeness and awkwardness. And what I've noticed is one thing that's inevitable is, as people climb the economic ladder, it's difficult to keep all the same friends and all the same people around you that you had when you were broke. It doesn't mean you have to cut them off or be snooty about it, but it means you have to be thoughtful about sort of what that sort of looks like, right? So anyway, that's my thought on that. And I would encourage you to not just sort of think that your relatives are toxic and you can't support them in any way. I think that I know the powernomics principle is that we support each other, and maybe it's just a matter of having balance and containing it. So if you want to know what my rule is when it comes to helping family and stuff like that, I help a lot of people every year. I probably loan and give away more money than most people make in a 2 or 3 year period. Like, to really, no, I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars that I have that's allocated to helping other people. Um, I don't regret it, but what I do is I draw boundaries. I draw boundaries because I have to protect me. And I have to be a little selfish because if I am this golden goose that's helping all these people, well, if the goose dies, then nobody gets helped anymore. So really, by preserving me and my energy and protecting Boyce, I'm protecting other people at the same time. And my rule is I will never ever just love other people as more than I love me, more than I love myself. It doesn't mean I'm going to put myself above others. I don't do that. But at the same time, I matter too. You matter, right? So I think having those boundaries can really help, because when you keep the boundaries, then you can show up appropriately when there are people that want to lean on you for whatever reason. So when relatives call me and stuff like that, if I don't have the energy to deal with whatever problem you're trying to dump on my desk, I'm just not gonna do it. I'm just not. But hey, when I got a little extra energy and a little space, and I'm able to handle the capacity, then I'm all in, right? So and I love that. I really like doing that. I think that that's okay. It doesn't make you stupid or weak or a user. And I get advice all the time. Like, "Boys, you got to stop letting these people use you like that." And I'm like, no, I know so and so is using me, but it's okay. I want them to use me. And actually, me and Dr. Claude Anderson have that relationship too. It's very interesting. That's why we became so close. He's like a dad to me. I love this man, and I love him because he's very sturdy. He's very consistent. So, for example, there would be people that would say, "Well, Dr. Boyce is just using you, and he's doing this," and he's like, "Number one, Boyce has actually helped me in a lot of ways." And he said, "Number two, I want him to use me." He said, "Because I use him. We use each other. We help each other." That's a powernomics principle. This idea that somehow somebody's always getting screwed and exploited and all that to some extent, I think, comes from us sort of having this victim mentality. It's like if I go to a record label, right? And the record label signs me to a deal. And let's say that we sign the contract and they agree to give me 10% of all the records that I sell. And so we sell $10 million worth of music, and I make $1 million, they make $9 million. the simplistic way to look at it is to say, damn, they just used me. They exploited me. I only made 1 million and they made 9 million. And I'm the star. I'm the one that everybody comes to see. But that's not seeing the whole picture. The whole picture is that, remember, they were investing $1 million in you before anybody knew who you were. So they had to take a risk. And if that $1 million investment had not worked out, I wouldn't have been paying them back. I wouldn't be giving them their money back. Right. And so they had to take a chance. They had to make an investment. They had to, so you could argue that I use them because without that record label that signed me, nobody knows who I am. I'm singing on the street corners because I don't have any distribution. I don't have any marketing. I don't have any promotion. I can't get on Ticketmaster by myself. I can't perform at Madison Square Garden by myself. So really, again, it's not to say that exploitation can't occur. It does occur. It occurs all the time, right? But it does mean that sometimes a lack of balance or very short-sighted, selfish thinking where I did this all by myself and I'm the only one who matters here can just cause people to say things that just don't make any damn sense. So I would encourage you form a good relationship with the world, a good economic relationship with the world where you matter and they matter and you all matter. Form it with the right people and that'll take you to the moon. I got some people that I work with on a regular basis where we don't get caught up in the minutia of who got the most out of the deal or you made more money than me. We don't get into that. We're just like, hey, how can I help you? Let me figure out how I can support you. Because I know that you're going to come back and support me when I need it. And because you're part of my ecosystem, you're part of my team, and I need my team to be strong, I'm going to pour into you because I know that even if I don't get it back right now, eventually it's going to circle back. Eventually what goes around is going to come around and you're going to be there for me too. But that only works with the right people because there are people out here that will take and give you nothing back at all. So that's where discernment really comes into play. So generally speaking, I would use my relationship with Dr. Claude Anderson as an example. There are many, many times where I have written very big checks. We just wrote another big check to help to buy more of their books, and you hear me talk about Dr. Anderson all the time, and it's not just as a favor; it's because I believe in the man, I love the man, his legacy. Everybody needs to know Powernomics. Everybody needs to know about this man. Every black student, every HBCU that does not teach Powernomics should be embarrassed and ashamed that you're not celebrating the contributions of this man. You're putting mediocre white people ahead of one of the greatest black men in the history of this country. So I do that partly because that's just what I believe, but also it's a great interaction. It's a great relationship. He's helped me so many times. It's ridiculous. He's given me so much wisdom through the years. He's been there to be a part of what we're doing in the Black Business School. So find those people. Find the people that in your life that are gonna show up for you. Find the people in your life that understand. Like we're all a basketball team, and I don't want to have a team where my teammates are sitting on the sidelines watching me score all the points. Right. I want teammates that are gonna, die for the loose ball, that are gonna play defense, that are gonna box out for a rebound, right? Whatever you can do to help out. But that's a mindset, that's a mentality. Because Michael Jordan had that problem. Michael Jordan had a problem for a while where he was scoring 35 points a game and his teammates were standing around watching. And they had to teach them, like, no, you have value. You can still help out. If Michael's going to take the shot, then you can set a pick, or you can go and you can play defense or get the rebound, or you can do something. So everybody in the family team has a job, and the job is to help the team win. And you instill this mindset in them very young. And if you do that when they're young, then they won't grow up and be the 35-year-old who borrows money from a sibling and just forgets to pay it back and thinks that it's not going to affect anybody. They're not even, that's not, that kind of mindset doesn't even cross their brain. Okay. So that's my 2 cents on this. I hope I didn't overtalk it. I hope I didn't uh lay it out in a way that sounds awkward or weird, but it's me just sort of laying it out as honestly as I can see it. And I wish you the best. And I encourage you to drill into that multi-million-dollar asset called your family, build on that, pour into that, invest in that. That's the best investment you'll ever make. It's more valuable than any investment you'll ever make on the stock market or anywhere else. All right. So have a good day, everybody. I'm gonna get on out of here. Really quickly, if you want to get a copy of my book or any of our financial flashcards for kids or anything like that, feel free to go to drboycebooks.com. That's our Black Wealth Mastery store, drboycebooks.com. Also, make sure you're on the text list. I'll send you some other information through to via text. To get on the text list, you can text the word morning to 87948. If you text morning to 87948, I'll send you an invitation to join us in Money in the Morning. We do this every single morning. And actually, I think today's Thursday. I gotta check, but I think we might have Dr. Cornell West coming in sometime. I gotta check. I think it might be Friday, but I could be wrong. So anyway, we are talking. I'm hoping I can get him in here because I like Dr. West. That's a good guy. All right, so have a good day, everybody. God bless you. It's about in his book, which is Black Exceptionalism, which is something that I hope we all agree on. I hope we have some sort of concept of what that might mean or some appreciation for this idea. And he literally gave a whole blueprint about Black exceptionalism and what makes us exceptional, why we are not to be messed with, why we are unique, why there's nobody else on earth like us. And I'm here for it. I'm ready for it. I think this is I was reading through it today and I said, man, everybody's gonna love this. They're gonna be so excited about this. And couple quick housekeeping notes. Don't forget the All Black National Convention. Speaking of Black excellence, that's going to be October 25th through the 27th in Lombard, Illinois, right outside of Chicago. And we're almost out of tickets, just so you know. We usually sell out every year. That's because we're not trying to have 50,000 people there. We actually like a good 600-700. That's the most we can really be comfortable with. And so if you want to get a pass, you may want to get it in advance. There won't be anything at the door. So it's not like you'll be able to walk up and buy a pass at the door. And so for those of you that do Money in the Morning, when we do our financial consciousness training, which is our free class we do every single day, you can actually get your pass at a discount this week. I think Thursday or Friday and Saturday, the team is going to send out links to discount passes. They only have 50 that they can sell for general admission, 50 for VIP, and I think 10 for President Circle. And the President Circle is a little more intimate. That's where you get a chance to sit and talk with me and stuff like that in a smaller group setting. So it's up to you to decide if you'd like to participate in that. So anyway, all right. So I hope we're all doing well, and I'm going to say hi to you. I'm in the chat in a minute. I'm just trying to get everything together, and I want to see who is here. Let me see who's here today. I see Royal Calhoun and James Keller. Calvin McWilliams says they're not like us. They sure not. Justin Pender, good to see you, my friend. Fannie Wilson from Columbia, South Carolina. Cassandra Winborn. Hello, hello, hello. Also, Amani's in the chat. Amani is on our team. And so if you have any questions about anything going on in the Black Business School, you want to talk about the Black Investors Championship, as you guys know, that's happening right now, the Black Investors Cup. And I'm going to announce the leaderboard at the end of the week. Or anything else, anything that you want to do in terms of educating your kids on economics, feel free to talk to Amani. She is part of our support team, and they really value you. They're very good at what they do, and they've all been here for several years. Pretty much supporting the cause and helping us to become extra Black and extra smart. Because being financially intelligent, that's acting Black, in my opinion. That's called acting Black. All right, so let's get started here. Let's go ahead and begin this discussion. Okay, so here's what Dr. Anderson wrote about. We're reading Dr. Claude Anderson's book. It's called The Black History Reader. I've been switching sections a little bit because I want us to read stuff that I think is appropriate for the tone and the conversations that we're already having. A lot of us are having conversations about the politics of America and reparations, things like that. So I'm going to read some of this to you. And so let me pull this up. All right. So what Dr. Anderson talks about, and I believe he's going to dig into the reparations conversation a little bit, is he talks about Black exceptionalism and just what that looks like, why you're exceptional, why you should not let other people lump you in to everybody else's stuff. And this is on page 186 of the book, The Black History Reader. The book can be found at powernomics.com. That's powernomics.com. And also, just so you guys know, another little note I want to mention is later on, I'm going to do some conversations about NVIDIA stock. And I explained actually a short video explaining why I did not buy NVIDIA. I'm not buying any more of it. I own it because I bought it cheap. I think it could be overpriced, and I think it's very, very risky. Everybody's been talking about NVIDIA. So it was on my mind because my son came in and asked me about it. And I explained to him why the stock price went down, even though they exceeded the earnings expectation. That's a whole stock market conversation. So just kind of be ready for that. Make sure you're on the text list, and I can send that to you. If you're interested in stocks, just text the word stock to the number 87948. Text stock to 87948. Yeah, Darlene, did it crash? I don't know if you call that a crash. At the very least, it's a correction. So there is some stuff to unpack there. And then second of all, I wanted to also, Tyler Perry said something interesting, and I wanted to kind of address that. I'll probably address that tomorrow morning, the economics of Tyler Perry in Money in the Morning. So if you want to join our morning class, also text the word morning to the number 87948. So there's different lists based on what you're interested in. So text the word morning to 87948 if you'd like to join our economic elevation class, which is 7 days a week, every morning, 10 a.m. Eastern. Bring your whole family. That's all I ask. You don't have to pay money, just pay attention because I want you to be tight on your economics. And then the NVIDIA stuff, I'll send you a link on that stuff as well. All right, so here is page 186 in the book, The Black History Reader by Dr. Claude Anderson, and he talks about Black exceptionalism, and he asks this interesting question. This is question 65. He says, is Black exceptionalism the unused key to Black self-empowerment? Have you not tapped into your exceptionalism when it comes to getting what you want? I think that there is this myth that there's something wrong with us, that we are perhaps disabled, or that we should be lumped in with all the misfits of society. Anybody who's not a white male, I vehemently disagree with that. I don't think there's anything. I don't think we're broken. I think that we just, or maybe some of us have been broken by society, but I think that we are exceptional in a lot of ways because of what we've gone through and how that built us into who we are. So here's what Dr. Anderson says. He says, Blackness has had special importance and impact in America and the world. For centuries, the American public and politicians in particular have proclaimed that America's democratic values, freedoms, and immigration policies make it an exceptional nation among societies and is therefore due special recognition, respect, and an elevated status over all other nations. Exceptional means something that is different, unique, rare, unusual, and remarkable. In the case of a group, it means that the members have been treated in an uncommon manner from all others. So he's saying that you are, pay attention now, he said unique, rare, unusual, and remarkable, and that you've been treated differently from everyone else. So give me a yes or no if you agree that no one else in this country has been treated the way Black people have. Give me a yes if you agree with me that we have had a unique experience in America, that we've been sort of dealt with in a way that no one else has been dealt with, that Black Americans are being treated differently from immigrants or LGBT people or anyone else. Give me a yes if you agree with that basic idea that we are treated differently from everyone else. Let's start there. Okay, so this is what his Black exceptionalism concept is built upon. So here's what else Dr. Anderson says. He says, what group of people in America, in nearly every respect, have been viewed and treated in a more egregious manner than Black Americans? Black Americans are exceptional people in this nation in many ways. It is time for Black Americans to demand compensation, recognition, appreciation, and respect for what their exceptionality created in America. Because of Black exceptionality, it is an affront and disrespectful for this nation and the Black overclass, the Black overclass, the Black overclass. Those are all those people that are telling you who to vote for and what to do with your money and what to do with your life. The Black overclass, y'all know who they are. You can pick whoever you want. The Black overclass, it is disrespectful for them and the rest of the nation to continue relegating Black Americans to broad and ambiguous groupings such as, pay attention to these keywords. These are keywords Dr. Anderson's using. Minorities, poor people, people of color, diversity, disadvantaged, and multicultural. So he's saying that the use of these terms dilutes and waters down your exceptionality. It waters you down. You're taking Whitney Houston and you're making her become part of a music group where she's a backup singer. Whitney Houston should not be anybody's backup singer. Whitney Houston should be a lead singer. Okay, and this is kind of what he's saying, is that you are unique. When people try to say, oh, well, you're not a white male, so we're going to lump you in with gay trans people. We're going to lump you in with every immigrant. We're going to lump you in with white women and let them get to the front of the line and put you at the back. There's a problem with that. And it shows itself in a lot of statistical outcomes in terms of who gets the most opportunities, who gets to eat first. You eat last because you let everybody else sit at your table. That's what he's basically saying. So he says here, Inclusion into those categories not only denies blacks recognition for their achievements, it gives the misleading impression that all categories of class minorities, immigrants, native Indians, gays, transsexuals, and women were that they were all enslaved, denied free land and wealth, lynched, castrated, denied to benefit from their own labor, denied human rights and love, and were maltreated as Black Americans. That's what they're saying when they just lump you in and say, "Oh, well, you're Black, go in the back with all the other misfits." They're pretty much saying that they went through the same thing you went through, and we know that this is not true. He says they were not. None of those groups have been treated like Black people. Blacks are very special people. This is page 187. 187 on an undercover cop. Remember that? I just had to say that because 187 hip hop. I like rap. I've always been into hip. That's why it bothers me so much when people think that they say you hate rap, you hate rappers, you don't know what you're talking about. Whenever I critique hip hop, I always have some fool that comes in the chat and says that, and I'm like, you big dummy, I know rap better than you. That's why I critique it, because I want it to get better. Y'all, they took rap and made it stanky. Rap was supposed to be beautiful. Rap was supposed to be wonderful. Rap was supposed to elevate us, and they turned it into something that just started to stink, like rotten eggs and nasty, like nasty curdled milk, and then just had you out here looking crazy. That's what I'm mad about. I love rap. I love rap. Let me keep on. Black exceptionalism is the missing factor needed to ignite a movement to change the bottom rung status of blacks. A fundamental premise of my powernomics concepts. Hold on. Why am I coughing? I need water. Hold on. Whenever I start coughing, somebody in the chat says, "Okay, doc, just take your time. Get some water, doc." So I'm going to take my time. All right. So it says here, a fundamental premise of my powernomics concepts urges blacks to build group self-sufficiency and competitiveness upon its advantages and exceptionalities. Powernomics principles are the best hope that Black Americans have to survive and prosper in America. However, the window of opportunity is very small and closing quickly. In my book, Powernomics, the National Plan to Empower Black America, I correctly project that when compared to other population classes, blacks would be a permanent underclass. He predicted this by 2013. By 2013. So on page 187 of the book, the Black History Reader, Dr. Claude Anderson, when he wrote this book, said that by 2013, Black people would become a permanent underclass. Now, I'm trying to remember. I keep forgetting. Is 2013 the future or the past? I can't remember. Have we already passed 2013? Because when you get older, you like remember when the year 2000 was way off in the future, because Prince would sing about it like we're gonna party like it's 1999, and you couldn't even imagine it. I can't remember. It was 11 years. Thank you, Kendall. I thank you. I forgot. Sometimes I forget. So 2013 is a long time ago. So according to what Dr. Anderson says, there is a segment of the Black community, not all Black people, because I know Kendall Green, I know his wife, and they're not an underclass. They've been investing. Their children are not part of an underclass because they did a good job. They raised their kids and they raised them well. But the majority of our people, according to Dr. Anderson, might be stuck. I don't know. I all I do know is that the labor market has changed. AI is here. A lot of people don't even know about AI, and so this is going to be interesting. Underclass status is measured by a group standing on social discomfort indicators such as measures of health, employment, poverty, income, wealth, education, criminalization, and business ownership. So pay attention. So this is how Dr. Anderson measures whether you're an underclass. You can write this down if you want to. This is good. So that when you figure out, like, okay, how are Black people doing? You can look at health, physical and mental health. Okay, since integration, are we doing better or worse in terms of physical and mental health? What do y'all think? Better or worse? Better or worse? And then let's move to employment. Are we doing better or worse than we were in the past? What do you think? I think employment is almost even, though. I think we have a lot of Black jobs. I think that most people that want work can find work. White people will always be happy to have Black people working for them. I think that there's space for that. However, here's what's interesting. I was listening to an economist speak today on a financial show, and he said something very interesting. He said that for the first time, he said for the longest time, politicians would never admit something that most economists know, that excessive amounts of immigration, and Dr. Anderson's talked about this, that excessive amounts of immigration undermines wage growth. That your wages, part of the reason that American wages have not gone up, and what they'll do is they'll tell you inflation's getting better. Well, part of the reason it's getting better is because wages aren't going up. Well, why aren't they going up? Well, because you're adding 10, 20, 30 million people to the workforce. So you got more people competing for jobs. So inflation going down, or better yet, it doesn't actually go. So inflation doesn't go away. You don't actually have deflation. You have disinflation. Inflation's always there, but it's slowing down. So it's like a car moving down the road. It doesn't stop. It's just not going as fast as it was before. Do you understand? There's a difference there. That's different from the car stopping and turning around. The inflation car does not turn around. It goes in one direction, but sometimes it goes faster than others. So basically, when they tell you, hey, hooray, everybody, inflation is under control. Well, a big indicator of that is how much employers are having to pay you to do your black job. So what they're partly saying is, yeah, your wages aren't going up because we don't have to pay you as much because now we've got a bunch of new people in the workforce that are going to compete for your job. Now you can do with that as you want. There's different arguments, right? It does help national productivity. It does help GDP. But just because GDP goes up, that doesn't mean that wealth is going up for everybody. So if you are in that working class, which a lot of us are, I don't think that this economy works in your favor. This is not a poor man's economy. This is not a working man or working woman's economy. This is a rich person's economy. And that's why I want you to invest, because I need you to do what rich people do. If you're a stockholder, yes, you're gonna do very well. You're gonna keep making money. They're never gonna stop helping rich people make money. But if you are, say, somebody who doesn't invest and you get up and you work hard and you go to work every day so you can pay off that 100,000 in student loans, you'll be stuck on that hamster wheel. And it's the running on the hamster wheel that generates the electricity that builds the wealth of rich people. That's capitalism, folks. So I hope that you will understand that, because if you don't, it can be very costly. So let me keep going here. Let's see, poverty. Okay, so he mentions poverty. I think in terms of poverty, maybe we're doing better. Okay, income. Are we doing better or worse? Like we were ranked dead last in income after integration. I think we're still dead last now. So income, we're worse or the same, right? We're not doing better. Okay. Wealth. How about wealth? Are we just is our wealth just skyrocketing and shooting through the roof, or is it going down? Education. How do you feel about education? Do you feel like our kids are just getting a pristine education in all these nice public schools in all these big cities, or do you feel like that's kind of an issue? I'd say it's an issue, and it's connected to culture, right? I think that when you're talking about broken families and then musical culture that celebrates criminality and broken families, you get a big problem. I think I read Poor LeBron. He started that school, and they said not one of the children was able to pass the state math exam in that school. And I don't think that's all LeBron's fault, though. I think he was probably doing his best, and he did actually get the school built, which we know that sometimes can take a while for some of us. But anyway, he built this school, and I think I'm sure it's a great school, but none of the kids could pass the state math exam, which you can't just put all that on the teachers. You can't put all that on the school. You also have to look at what's happening in our homes. And I think that what happens in our homes that's what we can control, and that should be a paramount concern for all of us. What else? Criminalization. Incarceration, things like that. That's another factor, and business ownership. So these are the things that Dr. Anderson says we can look at to determine our quality of life. So maybe as you go vote, whoever you vote for, you can make this list: health, employment, poverty, income, wealth, education, criminalization, and business ownership, and sort of look at these as indicators of which candidate you feel is going to benefit you the most. Personally, I don't think either one of the major candidates will do it, but it's up to you to make that decision. These data show that blacks are fixed at the bottom of every negative indicator and bear a disproportionate share of social pathologies. Underclass status is evident when, in public discourse or policy, blacks are ignored, no longer mentioned or acknowledged by name as a group. Black Americans must use their exceptionalism to change direction. They have devoted nearly 500 years to running away from blackness as a negative, but they must now turn to their exceptionality, view it as a positive, and proclaim it based upon the exceptional treatment and history they've experienced in American society. To use group exceptionalism as a positive force, it is necessary to know what makes them exceptional and distinguished from other groups in society. The following is a partial list of the ways blacks are exceptional in the U.S. You ready? This is a list. Dr. Anderson has a list. There's a lot of stuff on this list. Black people were, black people in the US were the first people on earth and ancestors of all mankind. Two, the first people in North America, the Folsom people and the Moors. Three, the only people enslaved by the US Constitution, the US Supreme Court, and state Jim Crow laws. Four, the only people classified as property, 3/5 of a human being and a quote unquote peculiar species. Five, let's see. Five, the only people made a permanent minority in underclass by the 1790 nationalization laws. Six, the only people excluded from billions of acres of free land granted to white immigrants. Seven, the only people not paid for their labor, therefore they could not acquire assets to pass to their descendants. Eight, the only people who gave free labor that, along with free Indian land, became the definition of the American dream sought by immigrants. So we were the American dream. We didn't get the American dream. We became a commodity for the American dream. Interesting. Nine, the only people for whom it was illegal to attend school or learn how to read and write. Number 10, we were the only descendants of slaves and were in America before 99% of all other people arrived. 11, the most patriotic people and fought in every major war since the nation's founding. 12, creators of music, dance, and slang copied and confiscated by every nation. 13, pawns over which the North and South fought in the 1860s American Civil War of brother against brother. 14, only people who created, and this is interesting, right? Let me go back here. 13 with the pawns, Civil War, pawns, slaves were pawns. We were enslaved people. We weren't slaves. We were enslaved people. We were pawns. And it's interesting because that idea of us being pawns to help other people win a bigger battle, a war, or even an election, that ideology still exists today. To this day, we're still pawns. To this day, the Republicans and Democrats use us as pawns just like the North and the South did. So it's not like they all show up and they trigger your trauma and they get you all getting the Holy Ghost on behalf of whatever they're trying to do. And they figure out how to use you and what you have to achieve a bigger objective that has very little to do with you. So do you see what I'm do you get the connection here? It's interesting because the Civil War is kind of the same thing. Well, nobody really fighting trying to free no slaves. Well, nobody like, yeah, I really care about black people like that. The people in the North, Dr. Anderson, God, thank God for him. He was one of the few people who helped us understand that even the people in the North did not want black people up there because they were competing for jobs. Black people were getting killed for trying to take somebody's job. They made laws blocking skilled black people from getting certain jobs. You can go up there and be a carpenter or a mason, bricklayer, whatever. You can do all that stuff or plumber. They blocked all that out. They blocked you out of the unions and blocked your grandfather and grandmother out of certain trades. So this idea that the North and the liberals loved us is a false idea. It is simply not true, 100% not true. So Dr. Anderson is helping us to understand that. So you've always been pawns though for a bigger game. So let's keep going. And actually that leads to another thought is before I read this, one of the reasons that we do financial consciousness training every day is because consciousness allows you to have self-awareness. When you are conscious and self-aware, you no longer are easily commodified by someone's bigger agenda because you can see the agenda. Consciousness is leveling up. It's a deeper perspective. It's where you see the world in higher dimensions. And that's what we do every morning. And I said, if we're more financially conscious, then what happens is that you start to understand your economic power. When you're financially conscious, you understand the position you have in the system. Like imagine if somebody trained you to be a cog in a wheel and there's a big machine, right? And you're a little tiny bolt in one of the machines. Well, if you're not conscious, then you're just going to do what the bolt does. You're just going to sit there and just play your position. But when you become conscious, you elevate and you see the whole machine. And you say, oh, there I am. I'm the bolt in the machine. I don't want that damn job. Get me the hell up out of here. Do you understand? So really, consciousness is critical for us to really know what's going on. Consciousness maybe starts with knowledge and information. I can provide a lot of that on the economic stuff, but then it also is almost just meditative, and it's meditative in terms of really seeing the bigger picture. Consciousness is also connected to self-esteem and self-awareness, which is why Dr. Anderson's layout of the clear definition of Black exceptionality is really important, because then you will know how valuable you are. You will know how important your children are. You will know how valuable your community is. And when something's more valuable to you, you're going to invest in that. I'm an investor. I've been an investor a long time. I will never invest in a company or a business that is not valuable or that does not have potential. So when you value something, you invest in it. When you value something, you take care of it. When you value something, you protect it. When you don't value it, you give it away. That's why we got all these poor little girls giving their bodies away, twerking on Instagram because they don't value their girls that value their bodies don't do that. Or men run around planting seeds in every girl that that looks good that walks by. And, Nick Cannon and Cam Newton, that whole conversation, like, I'm gonna just go sleep with her and her and her and her. I think a man that values himself and values his seed doesn't really think that way. He says, no, I'm the king, and as the king, I'm only going to choose the proper queen that will carry my seed. I'm not having some stripper having my baby just because she's cute. I need to make sure I vet the people that are allowed to even be part of this very important, very significant, very royal bloodline. Do you understand? So really, that self-awareness, that knowledge, that ability to see the big picture, all these things relate to consciousness, and this is why we must be conscious. So when I say woke, like when I had that, y'all saw me at InvestFest, I had the shirt on that said financially woke. For me, woke is like wide awake, like you're seeing it all. And when you're really woke about the world and you really are committed to that, you start to just see things. And unfortunately, what happens sometimes is because I try to stay as woke as I can, and I see stuff and I say, I see that, and I see that, and I see that. Sometimes people don't understand it. And I get it. I understand that. So let's all wake up. Let's pay attention. We are exceptional, and we should demand that. You got to stand on that. You can't be letting people knock you off your perch. You got to stand on your exceptionality. So let me keep going. So he says also, we were the only people that were pawns in the Civil War. I mentioned that. Number 14, we were the only people who the only people who created the need for a second U.S. Constitution, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments and civil rights laws. 15, we were the only people we were only Southern labor class whose images were displayed on Confederate currency. Didn't know that. 16, only people in America who were denied the humanity of loving, nurturing, building, and protecting their own families. You weren't even allowed to nurture and love your children. And so when you see it that way, it helps us understand why we're not nurturing our children the way we should right now. For hundreds of years, we weren't allowed to do that. So it says here, reflection upon the exceptionalities listed above should lead readers to question how different the U.S. would look today if, one, blacks had been a paid labor force that cleared the land, built the roads, bridges, canals, government offices, and universities. What would have happened if you had got paid? Number two, if blacks had been members of the founding fathers, what would the nation look like if that had happened? Participating in the writing of the nation's constitution, allowed to vote, hold public office, and express a group self-interest. What would the country look like if we had done that? What would America look like today if blacks had ownership of some of the thousands of acres of free land upon which to build mega farms and ranches and extract the minerals, oil, gas, lumber, and other resources, and the opportunity to accumulate wealth from the generous land giveaways? I want you to think about whatever city you're from. Put the city that you're from in the chat. Everybody tell me what city you're from. I'm gonna read literally from the chat. Tell me, what city do y'all live in? Type the name of your city. Rep your city right quick, because I'm gonna use this as an example. Let's see here. What we got? Let me hold on. I'm opening up the chat. It's taking a minute. Sorry. Okay, I see Chi-Town. I see Dr. Vibe. I looked like I saw Toronto for you. Was that right? Kansas City, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Brooklyn for Douglas. Okay, so Douglas. Let's start with Douglas and Brooklyn. Douglas is I love Brooklyn. The black people in Brooklyn are amazing. I got to do another event there, because when I went there, you guys really came out in droves, and I appreciate that so much. So imagine if you went through Brooklyn and think about all the skyscrapers you see in Brooklyn, just thousands of skyscraper buildings. Each of these buildings worth hundreds of millions of dollars. maybe billions for some of them worth billions of dollars. Imagine if black people owned like 13% of those buildings. Imagine if like one in every 10 or one in every 8, 9, or 10 buildings you saw that was like 80 stories high, you could say, oh, yeah, that's owned by a black family, or another black family owns that building, or a conglomerate with investors from, the black community bought that building. Like that's the kind of world we would live in if we weren't locked out of economic opportunities. But I dare you, you go to a big city like Chicago or New York, and there's thousands of skyscrapers. You're gonna have a hard time finding one that's owned by black people. One out of 10,000, 5,000, whatever the number is. And I think that's atrocious. That's appalling. That pisses me off. That makes me angry. And again, that's another thing that consciousness does. Consciousness doesn't, it takes you from just seeing the world as it is to seeing the world as it could have been. And then also consciousness allows you to see the world as it could be if you make certain decisions. So you literally can time travel, mind travel to different dimensions. You can travel through space and time and see things in various ways. So I don't really see what's happening around me very much. I'm seeing 20 years in the future. I'm seeing the what ifs all the way across the board. So the big what if is that if you didn't have hundreds of years of slavery, Jim Crow, and oppression, if you didn't have hundreds of years of wealth extracted and stolen from the black community, if you did not have hundreds of years of consistent, horrific abuse and disregard and disdain for black people, the world would look very, very different. And I think that we should fight for that world. When Dr. King had that dream of they unfortunately they weakened his dream. They watered it down to that whole thing about little white girls and little black boys holding hands. I ain't never wanted to hold hands with a white girl. No disrespect. If you're white, I don't hate you. I just like black women the most. I want to hold hands with my wife. And my dream is much bigger than that. And my dream is not holding hands with a white woman. My dream is us owning what we really should own. My dream was when I went to the Black Business Conference this weekend and saw thousands of Black business owners, hundreds of CEOs. They had dozens of African delegations forming deliberate connections to do tens of millions and hundreds of millions of dollars of business with Black-owned businesses. My dream was InvestFest, where I went over there and saw thousands of young people sitting there listening to information about everything from trading stocks to buying real estate to starting a business. That's the dream I have. That's what I want to see. Because if we double and triple down on that and really commit to that, taking back our stuff, we got to take back our stuff. If we commit to taking back our stuff, I think that we will have a future that is incredibly bright. And not only should we do it, we have to do it. You have to do it, because if you don't do it, then your kids are going to end up in slavery just like you. Our grandkids will be in slavery. Just like I don't want anybody going through what I went through. It was really hard to get by. It was really hard to figure out how to get a couple of nickels to rub together. It was really hard to be in a workplace where it was so toxic that it affected my mental health. Why do you think I never worked for anybody? I never went to corporate America. I got my dream job. You talk about black jobs. I got a real good black job when I was in college. Let me tell you what happened. I got a job, an internship with GE Aircraft Engines, because I told you I was the top black student on campus. I had the highest grade point average. So I got everything I applied for. So I applied for this internship because it paid the most money. I needed money. And they put me in this super nice apartment in Boston. And I worked for the General Electric Aircraft Engines division in Lynn, Massachusetts. That was a great summer. I had a lot of fun, but I absolutely hated that fucking job. Excuse my French. I'm not going to cuss anymore, but I hated that job with a passion. It was terrible. It was boring. I didn't relate to anybody. My boss was a racist. Her name was Mary Perna. I'll never forget this terrible lady. And it was just a bad experience all the way around. I remember walking away saying, man, is this it? Is this what I've been fighting for? It's gotta be better than this. And so once I understood wealth, and then I started to explore how certain other people live when they built a legacy, when they do the investing, when they have the discipline, when they prepare for the future, I said, oh, that's the American dream over there. You see, you was pointing me over to this stupid corporate job and white women or whatever the hell you think that was supposed to be my dream, or BET. Like that's supposed to be the American dream, like becoming a famous rapper or something so you can get shot in the face in front of your kids. No, that's not a dream. None of that's a dream. The American dream, in my view, is financial security. The American dream is peace. The American dream is freedom. The American dream is for me to be able to provide for my family and to be a proud man, to knowing that my wife can depend on me, and to know that I can simply just be a happy human being. That, the American dream for me is being physically and mentally healthy. The American dream for me is being able to be proud and black and hang out with other black people without being scared. Being a bug-eyed slave, like, y'all, they gonna find out the black folks is talking. I can't hang out with the black people. I kid you not, when I told y'all when I went to Syracuse University, there was a black woman that got hired who told me that she deliberately avoided spending too much time with the other black people because she didn't want to get in trouble. I'm like, we're not in the third grade. This is not kindergarten, lady. Like, what are you talking? Like, what do you mean get in trouble? We're in our 30s at the time. Well, who's gonna get us? But that was what she told me, and I was like, this is the Twilight Zone. This is crazy to me. They got us scared to be honest. They got us scared to be real about who we are. Ain't nothing wrong with you loving yourself. Ain't nothing wrong with you loving other black folks. Ain't nothing wrong with you being pro-black. Nothing's wrong with that. There's something wrong with them. Anybody who defines you as being bad, dangerous, or disruptive because you're pro black family, pro black community, you want to fix the problems and you're committed to that. There's nothing wrong with you. There's something that is wrong with them. They're the crazy ones. They're the ones who become so attached to a dysfunctional, jacked up reality that when you give them a dose of honesty and truth, they don't know what to do with that. Well, Dr. Boyce is dangerous. What did Dr. Boyce ain't no dangerous, man? I ain't out here hurting nobody. If you see me, I'll give you a hug. I'll shake your hand. If you're hungry, I'll feed you. What the hell makes me dangerous? What am I doing that's dangerous? I get it. I'm chopping up your bullshit false reality with some honesty, and I'm a pretty smart guy, so I know the difference between real shit and bullshit. And you don't like it. That's your problem. That's what makes me dangerous. But I'm not a dangerous man. A lot of y'all met me. You know I ain't dangerous. I think I'm a nice guy. I'll smile at you a lot. I smile a lot. I'm friendly. So why do we have this weird world where, like, oh, well, I can't say that I'm on Instagram, and why? That's insanity. So I don't think we have to submit and commit to a ridiculous reality. I don't think we have to submit to that. I think that you can dream a little bit, and I encourage you to dream hard. Dream strong, dream as a free man, free woman. Have those dreams of freedom, whatever that looks like for you. Have that dream and commit to it, and don't be scared. Don't let anybody knock you off of that. Let me keep going. Let me keep reading. All right. All right. So we're on page 189 of Dr. Claude Anderson's book. I hope that you will support him. Every black child should be reading his books. His website is powernomics.com, by the way. And this book is called The Black History Reader. And you won't find this in any public school anywhere because he's another one of those dangerous Negroes. Dangerous guy. All right. So here's what Dr. Anderson says. He says, reflection upon the exceptionalities listed above should lead readers to question how different the U.S. would look. And we talked about what would the world look like if we had been paid? What would the world look like if we had been among the founding fathers? What would the world look like if we had ownership of the thousands of acres of free land that was given to other people where they built oil and gas and lumber empires, etc.? What would the world look like if we'd been allowed to economically benefit from our inventions, our music, our dances, our culture, and our communities? What if hip hop belonged to us? What would that look like? It would be amazing, right? Because hip hop is this $1 trillion industry that's owned by a bunch of people who can't even rap. That doesn't make any sense. Number 5. What would the world look like if blacks had received the land, money, and tribal membership mandated in the 1866 Indian treaties? What about that? Y'all know about that? You don't know about that? Cody Ransom came in. Cody Ransom is in Greenwood, the Greenwood section of Tulsa, Oklahoma. He knows all about that. He knows about all that land and property that was given to Native Americans and that black people were supposed to get a big chunk of that. He knows that we were supposed to get a lot of the special benefits that were given to other groups, and that not only did the colonizers block black folks out of that, but even some of the Native American tribes, some of these tribes that you're taught that are your allies or whatever, they block black folks out. Right. So you don't really have any friends, and they create narratives that make you think you have friends. Well, my thing is, like, if you're my friend, why aren't you sharing your wealth? If you're really my friend, then you're gonna give me my piece of the pie. If you lock me out and have me out here starving, you ain't really my friend. So anyway, let me keep going. Number six, what if black people, what would the world look like if black ownership rights had been preserved to land in Florida according to the Adams-Onis Treaty? That's another one. We haven't read about that yet, but we are going to get to that. That's another treaty where apparently we are supposed to have a big chunk of the land in Florida too. What if blacks had received the $50 million stolen by whites from the Freedmen's Bank? So there was a Freedmen's Bank where they put money in there that was supposed to be for y'all. Somebody took all that money and nobody knows where it went. The exceptionality of Black Americans is their best, but so far unused pathway to socioeconomic competitiveness, independence, and self-sufficiency. So since we just got finished talking about that treaty, let me read to you what this treaty was. This the treaty that involved Florida. Oof, there's a lot here. Oof. Okay, all right, let's keep going. All right, the Adams-Onis Treaty of 1819 was a treaty between the U.S. and Spain that sold the Spanish territory of Florida to the United States. The treaty also settled the fights that the two countries had long waged over slavery and the rights awarded to black people who settled in Florida. Some black settlers had always been free, and others had escaped from slavery. For 300 years, Spain had claimed the Florida territory that stretched from the Atlantic Ocean along the Gulf Coast to mid-Texas. During that period, the Spanish government and the Catholic Church proclaimed Florida to be a haven for free blacks and runaways who escaped southern plantations to become Spanish citizens. Spain's offer of citizenship included physical protection and free land for blacks accepting Catholicism. After a number of costly military conflicts, Spain fell on hard times and by 1819 agreed to sell Florida to the U.S. for a mere 5 cents an acre or approximately $15 million. The sale was formalized in the Adams-Onis Treaty signed by Secretary of State John Quincy Adams and ratified by the Senate in 1821. The terms of the sale should have protected blacks who were made U.S. citizens by the treaty. So they were Spanish citizens. They were made U.S. citizens. How many of y'all knew this? How many of y'all, let's pause. Yes or no? How many of y'all learned any of this in school? Anybody learn about this stuff in school? Did they tell you this specific stuff? I'm looking for one yes. I see nope. Monica says nope. Jim, Jama, April, hell no from Jean Trey. I'm looking for one. I need just like I'm looking for one. I don't see one yes. One yes. Now do you kind of understand why I can't get fired up about fighting for like public schools? I can't do that because they lie to us and they don't tell us anything. Like I think we should be educating our own kids. I want our kids to be like Caden. I told you all I saw about Caden. I saw Caden at InvestFest and he was 14 and he just finished high school at 14 and he's already a millionaire because his parents really did what most parents should do, which is embraced him and really loved him and taught him in a nurturing space so he could be his best. I'm in that camp. But again, I'm not criticizing anybody's choices. I just think that these schools are just not that great, and that's what I believe. I think you're a commodity. Your kid is makes somebody else money, and that's why they want them there. All right, so let me keep going. But no disrespect to all the teachers that are. I know you're doing your best. But we know what the system does. It doesn't give you the ability to really do what I think you need to do. If I could raise a couple $100 million, I swear I would totally like start a bunch of schools across the country and hire a bunch of black teachers who love black children and pay you as well as I could to allow you to be the intervener in the lives of these children because what these children need isn't just education. What they really need is love. They need love. Love is the glue that elevates education. It's not even just about learning the math and the science and the facts. It's about learning it from somebody who really cares about you and wants the best for you. And I believe that when you are around people that want the best for you, you bring out the best in yourself. And I only know this because I was a black boy in public schools who acted a fool, who never made good grades, who was very disruptive. But when I was around people that genuinely loved me, particularly black women. So thank you for being there for us. When I was around people that really loved me, a man who was really mentoring me properly, a woman who really nurtured and cared about me, I became a whole different person. I became the best kid ever. And I think that's true for so many of our children. I think that they feel like they're in little penitentiaries when they're going to these public schools. And so if I had my way, I would get as many of our kids out of there as I possibly could. Again, no disrespect to anybody else's approach. I know some of us can make it work, and I'm not in any way criticizing that or criticizing you as a parent. I just, in my view, that's the gold standard. So when I become a billionaire, just know one of the first things I'm going to do is start a public school. So if you have $1 billion and you want to donate to the cause, hit Amani up and tell her you want to make a donation or something. All right. So anyway, let's keep going. All right, so the sale was formalized in the Adams-Onis Treaty signed by Secretary of State John Quincy Adams. Okay, he says the terms of the sale should have protected blacks who were made U.S. citizens by the treaty, which conferred upon them ownership of the Florida land they had worked. So they were supposed to get ownership of their land. Alas, that did not happen. What a surprise. The Adams-Onis Treaty is just another instance in which whites one-sidedly benefited from circumstances and assets created by black people. The Adams-Onis Treaty expanded this nation's landmass and provided the opportunity for whites to steal land and benefits that had rightfully belonged to blacks. Whites not only stole land ownership and freedom from blacks, but also severely punished them. Treaties are the highest laws of the land and have the strength of international law when they are made between sovereign nations. The treaty stipulations required the U.S. to honor the protections and rights that the Spanish crown had granted the slaves, free blacks, and native Indians. It required the U.S. to treat people with African blood living free in Spanish Florida the same way it treated whites. The language of Article 6 of the Adams-Onis Treaty specifically bound the U.S. to these conditions, stating, quote, the inhabitants of the territories which this Catholic Majesty cedes to the U.S. shall be admitted to the enjoyment of all privileges and immunities of citizens of the U.S. That means basically everybody who lives here gets the same rights. That's kind of what he's saying. Like, that's pretty much what it says. It is clear that the terms of the treaty guaranteed all black settlers freedom, U.S. citizenship, and rights to their Florida land. So three things: freedom, citizenship in the U.S., and rights to their land. Rights to their land, rights to their land. Which one do you think they took first? The rights to the land, then they took the freedom. The U.S. citizenship, you kind of got that because you were 3/5 of a person, but that's it, in a commodity. It also gave them the right to migrate to any territory owned by Spain. Did y'all know that? I didn't know that. Interesting. So they had the right to migrate to any Spanish territory. Years before the Adams-Onis Treaty, the U.S. was under great pressure from white slaveholders who wanted their runaway slaves returned. So they want, here we go. This is where they get into the greed. So they wanted their slaves back. I'm sure this is going to be part of the narrative. They also wanted the Florida land that the runaway slaves, free blacks, and native Indians owned there. So they wanted the people and they wanted their land. So there we go. Remember we were saying like the land and the freedom were the two things that we're going to take? That's what they're doing right now. It was estimated that black settlers owned, pay attention, that black people owned approximately 40% of the land across northern Florida. That's a lot of land. 40%. That's ours. That's ours. Where's my cut? That's ours. 40% of the land in northern Florida. Slave owners petitioned General Andrew Jackson to use his military forces to help them seize the land and the slaves. So the slave owners went to Jackson. They said, those Negroes, we want their land and we want their bodies. We want their black bodies and we want that land. And so they got Jackson to use the military to go to Florida and take it back. General Jackson, a slave owner himself, was sympathetic and obliged the slaveholders. He made several illegal military incursions into the Florida territory to capture runaways, take their land, and to destroy the black maroon towns and Seminole Indian villages that were protecting black settlers. Jackson had no military, executive, or congressional authority to invade Spanish Florida and to kill its black and Indian citizens. His actions nearly threw the U.S. into war with Spain over these incidents. The only reason Jackson's military invasions did not trigger a war at the time was that Spain was so financially weak that it preferred to sell Florida to the U.S. rather than get into another fight. Are y'all as freaked out about this as I am? I'm reading this with you. I did not know these things. This is fascinating. This is one thing that's interesting too is Spain's ability to defend itself was driven by economic problems. I think that's a profound point that I want to make to you, and I want you to understand that even in your life as an individual, your ability to defend yourself and to defend your own freedom comes down to whether or not you are financially prepared. So therefore, the fact that you live in a society that teaches you to be economically reactive instead of economically proactive pretty much opens the door for you and your children to end up in slavery. When you don't have financial security, in general, you don't have security, period. So many of us are trained from birth to live in a consistent state of financial insecurity, which opens the door for others to come in and invade territory that should belong to you. No, what does that invasion look like? No, they're not showing up and they're not killing you. They're killing you slowly, but not killing you directly. But what does that mean? Well, that means they're going to take your time. So they're going to take your freedom. You can't do what you want during the day because you're going to have to go to work. They're going to come in. They're going to get your children. Your children can't work in the family business. They're going to have to go work for, this white man over here and that white man over there, right? And then on top of that, you're just going to be in this constant state of economic anxiety. So what I want you to understand is um that this is bigger than money. Money is bigger than money. Money is not that important to me, honestly. Just today, I get people on my Instagram all the time. My Instagram is Dr. Boyce Finance, by the way, and I have another one, Dr. Boyce Money. Follow me on Instagram if you want to. And one guy, I put up a financial video today, and the guy said, "This is nice, Boyce. I'm glad you're on brand, whatever that means, right?" And I said, "I'm always on brand. Every single thing I say is on brand. It's because I'm not a finance professor who happens to be a black man. I'm a black man who happens to be a finance professor. My only interest in economics, my deep interest in economics is only driven by one thing. That economics is deeply connected to the other things that matter in our lives in terms of freedom and overall well-being. Money is a pathway to these things. That's why I care about money. I'm not trying to sit here and be rich so I can talk about how I have more money than another person. That's silly. That's for children. I believe money is important. I believe wealth is important because wealth will protect you when they come and try to invade you. And colonizers will always come and try to invade you in a capitalist society if you don't have your money right. So what you do for your kids, if you love them, is you make an economic plan. You prepare them financially. You start investing while they're young, so they have assets when they're older. So therefore, they don't end up like this. Like Spain. Spain couldn't do anything. They were economically weak. So they had to give in. They had to give away people and territory and everything else. Just like it. So imagine if these citizens were kind of like their children. An entity or an individual that is not financially secure cannot defend and protect its people. So the part of the reason you cannot defend and protect your community is because we have not fully embraced the discipline required to be financially intelligent and financially prepared. Do you understand? Do you follow what I'm saying? Do you get what I'm saying? Do you see the connection here? If Spain had a different approach to its finances, they could have fought the war, defended their people, told them to fuck off. They whatever. Excuse my French. I know I cussed a lot today. I hope that please forgive me for that, but I got to be honest. They could have said, "Screw you. These are our people. We're gonna fight you till the end because we've got the resources to do that." But because they had no resources, they had to bow to the crown. They had to bow to the aggressor. So in many of your homes, in many of your families, because you don't have resources, you have to bow to the aggressor. Black men can't be men the way we want to be because we didn't grow up in spaces where they taught us to be economically strong and prepared. You have to go out groveling and begging and hoping that massa will give you an opportunity. And I'm not making fun of anybody in this position. I was there too. But I believe every black man on earth should know how to start a business from the time he's a child. I think that should be a requirement for all of our boys. Same thing. I think the girls too. The girls have their own reasons to be economically independent. So this is what I'm seeing here. This is what I'm seeing. That not being prepared makes you vulnerable. And then that's when people come in and they take your stuff and they take the people around you. So you are the head of a household. You've got some stuff. You've got some people that you're protecting. You can't protect them because the money's not right. Why ain't the money right? Why don't we have a plan? Why aren't we doing more? Why aren't we understanding economic preservation as a critical element of personal and collective freedom? Freedom, influence, power, whatever you want to call it. Money is power. Money is power, and economic warfare is a very real thing. It's declared on you every single day, and it's going to be declared on your children. So make sure that they're ready. Let me keep reading here. All right, so it says, as stated earlier, after the treaty was signed in 1821, Florida became an American territory and the inhabitants became U.S. citizens. However, that did not stop General Jackson from breaking the law. He committed numerous additional reprehensible acts to aid the white slaveholders. He repeatedly used the U.S. military to capture blacks in Florida and deliver them to the slaveholders. In doing so, Jackson violated the U.S. Constitution that declared it illegal to bring slaves into the country after 1808. These intentional illegal actions on the part of Jackson and the complicity of the U.S. government, because it let those illegal acts occur, raise numerous questions. The answers to those questions create legal pathways to remedies for reparations for reparations for today's Black Americans. In the following section, I am intentionally framing detailed legal arguments that should be used to compel the U.S. government to provide reparations to Black Americans as a group. And I mentioned with reparations, it's not the government is not the only entity that owes us money. Every corporation on the planet that in the U.S. that has money needs to be contributing to this pot, because we see those $1 trillion. We see Nvidia with that $2-3 trillion valuation. Apple, all these companies, you can drop a couple $100 billion into the pot too. So let's keep reading. Violations of the Adams-Onis Treaty provide a strong statutory basis for reparations that Blacks should pursue. The following legal issues arise out of Articles 4, 5, 6, and 9 of the Adams-Onis Treaty. These articles articulate the citizenship and land rights granted by Spain to all Black settlers and the rights that transferred with them upon the sale of Florida. To pursue reparations based on this treaty, Blacks must develop a comprehensive legal strategy. The first step Blacks must take is to demand that the U.S. government provide a historical investigation into each legal issue I have identified and make a formal claim. The most appropriate investigators should be the U.S. Department of the Interior and Congress. Second, the realities of history, given the realities of history, Blacks must organize their legal scholars and elected officials to monitor government progress and identify descendants of Black Spanish settlers. Third, Blacks must make restitution from the Adams-Onis Treaty a political issue and organize the masses. These facts below are some legal issues that Blacks today must demand answers to as they pursue reparations based on the Adams-Onis Treaty. 1. General Andrew Jackson and the United States accepted ownership of Florida as a new state, but ignored the numerous provisions of the treaty that Spain had made for free Blacks, runaways, and Black Seminole Indians. 2. What compensation is due to the descendants of the free Blacks in Spanish Florida that General Andrew Jackson killed or shanghaied and delivered into slavery more than a generation after 1808, the date after which the Constitution, as ratified, prohibited bringing slaves into the country? 3. Why didn't Black Spanish citizenship and land ownership convert into citizenship and ownership in the United States as required by the treaty? So why weren't the citizenship and land ownership converted over? 4. When Indians and Black settlers were removed from Florida by the U.S. government, why weren't millions of acres of Florida land owned by Black settlers and Black Seminoles held for them in accordance with the Adams-Onis Treaty? What happened to the ownership of that land? That can be traced. You can trace who owns property, right? Am I right? Yes. So on page 193 of the Black History Reader, Part 5, Dr. Anderson says, do the descendants of Black landowners still have entitlement to that Florida land? They owned the land based on Spanish decree and natural or divine law, but did not have paper documents such as deeds. 6. If the terms of the treaty are invalid, then the state of Florida still belongs to Spain. Nearly 2 centuries after the U.S. Congress signed the Adams-Onis Treaty, it is necessary to track ownership of the many Florida lands that have been owned by Black Spanish settlers whose land rights should have followed them after the U.S. purchase. If the treaty is valid, then the obligations to Black settlers must be honored. 7. What happened to the sovereignty rights of free Black settlers who had lived throughout Florida for centuries and were forced into slavery? Think about this. You've been free for centuries and they force you. I mean, that's terrible. That's horrible. And who had lived in Florida throughout Florida for centuries and were forced into slavery or were later marched along the Trail of Tears with Native Indians to the Oklahoma Territory. What happened to their land? Were the owners compensated? Were their descendants compensated? Or is that a bill still waiting to be marked, paid in full by the U.S. government? That's what Dr. Anderson's asking about. That is a lot. That is very deep. And that is where we're going to stop for today. Whew. I don't know about y'all, but I'm kind of tired. I need a cigarette and I don't even smoke. If I was an alcoholic, I'd be getting a drink right now. Shoot. If I was a drug addict, I'd be hitting the pipe twice. But fortunately, I'm none of these things. So instead, I think I'm going to go kiss my wife and eat some of her delicious dinner. So with that said, we're going to meet next week for book club. If you want to get an invitation, you want to be on the list, text the word greatness to 87948. Text greatness to 87948. Couple reminders of things happening in the Black Business School. Number one, this week, Constance Carter who owned the largest Black real estate firm in California, is doing a session. I believe that session is Thursday night. We have B1 Real Estate, and it's her mastermind, so that's going to happen this week. Also tomorrow, or sorry, scratch that. Sorry, that's going to be tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow night, Thursday, duh. And she's going to come in. So if you are on the text list, I'll send you a text about that. Also, Friday, Dr. Lene Javette, who is our Dean of Entrepreneurship, is going to do a special session called Concept to Cash Flow, where you take your ideas, turn them into a business. Dr. Javette studied Black entrepreneurs in her doctoral work. She's on the faculty. She's going to be doing that Friday. That's free. Now, the real estate event, that's part of Dr. Boyce Real Estate. The real estate event with Constance, you can get a free trial in that. Just make sure you're on the list. In fact, if you want to join us tomorrow morning for financial consciousness training, those who haven't signed up, text the word morning, MORNING, to the number 87948, and I'll send you invitations to all that stuff. So text morning to 87948. Number three, we have an estate planning training that I put together in the Dr. Boyce Academy. Lifetime access will be $299 if legacy building is something that you're interested in, you want to learn estate planning. I am going to reduce the price by 48% for 48 hours for a couple days on Thursday and Friday. You'll get a text to decide if you'd like to participate in that. And then last but not least, the All Black National Convention is October 25th through the 27th. We're going to convene in Lombard, Illinois, right outside of Chicago at the Westin Hotel, and spend a couple days just being super Black and getting to know each other and connecting and having our family reunion, learning and having fun and connecting. And that's pretty much what the convention is. So if you'd like to learn more about the convention, you can go to allblacknationalconvention.com. That's allblacknationalconvention.com. All right. And the book that we read tonight is called The Black History Reader by Dr. Claude Anderson. You can get a copy at powernomics.com. He has a whole bundle pack of all of his books you can get for $99. Best $99 investment you'll ever make. So feel free to go to powernomics.com. So God bless you guys. I hope you have a great night. I'll see you all tomorrow morning for Economic Elevation. I hope you guys are having a great day. Welcome to drboycetv.com, the home for intelligent Black people. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins, and today we have a very special guest, this brother Jamal Green, who is an activist out of Chicago, who is doing some interesting work. And he's in the middle of some interesting controversy right now. So Jamal has given us the honor of speaking with us today. I want to ask my brother, how you doing today, man?
Man, I'm beautiful, man. It's a beautiful day.
All right. Yeah. And so everybody that comes in, let's do a quick audio check. Give me a quick yes in the chat if you can hear us. Okay, let us know that you can hear and see everything. All right, as we get started. So as you come in, I'm going to just jump right into it. So Jamal, you were the subject of a really interesting back and forth on Twitter involving none other than Mr. Roland Martin. And apparently, it looked like some things got kind of heated where Roland, from what I understood, he attacked you on your Twitter page. He came at you first. You did not tweet at him. You did not say anything about him. And then you actually paid him a little visit at a DNC event. Let's just start from the top, man. So what's going on with Roland? What happened?
Well, this was unprovoked. Let me first say that Roland has spotlighted me on his show for some of the work that I've done throughout the years. I remember a clip when I announced for mayor, and he put up a clip on his show. He talked about basically spotlighting me in a good light. And I think what's happening right now is that Roland is not liking independent voices who are being critical, saying that Black people deserve more from both sides, right? I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. I'm independent. And so when I speak, I say, man, we must have a plan and an agenda from both sides of the aisle, and force their hand. We can't just say, oh, we're Democrat, or we voting for Kamala just because she's Black. We're only voting for her because she's a woman. We can't play those type of games. We have to actually have a real plan. So Roland, I guess, saw some of my tweets, and he decided all right out the blue, I'm just gonna attack Jamal Green, starting with, "Are you dumb?" and "You can't be this clueless." And he called me an idiot in another tweet. And then I just happened to click on his live show, and he was calling me a fool on his live show. So, Roland was just wilding out, and I didn't see him attacking me till 3-4 hours later. And he already had 30-some thousand views, and people was dragging him for how he was operating with me. So that's the beginning of it.
Okay.
So how it happened.
So all right. So let's I'm gonna brief everybody. So just to be clear, you were not an aggressor toward Roland.
No.
You pretty much just stated your opinion, and so he kind of came at you. He came to your Twitter page and made some nasty comments. Or you said he called you dumb. And what else did he say?
Dumb, clueless. He said, y'all can't be listening to this idiot spewing this BS. When I went on his show, he was calling me a fool. He just was, man. He was reckless, and it caught me off guard because I'm like, wow, okay, Roland Martin coming out to me, all out the blue. I would have thought that he'd have DM me or he'd have responded and said, well, I disagree, young brother. We need to listen more, or how you think he know everything. I would have thought he would have approached it in a more diplomatic way. Unfortunately, he just all out the blue, started questioning my intelligence and calling me names, and that's kind of what kicked it off.
Interesting. Okay, so I actually put a clip of the interaction you and Roland had, and I want to ask you about that, just in terms of what was going on to me, because I watched the video, I listened to what you had to say, I listened to, actually there was a group of people in the Twitter space that were kind of going back and forth about it, and they had different opinions, right?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna ask you about all of that because you and I talked earlier, and I want everybody to know I was impressed with you. You know that it was the first time you and I had ever spoken, and what impressed me is that you're not just a Twitter gangster. You really are out doing the work. Yep. And also, you've really done a lot of things in the community that give you a certain amount of credibility to even have this perspective. And I think everybody should know that. Let's start there, actually, before I show the clip. Tell everyone about who you are, what you do. I mean, you do a lot of stuff in Chicago. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, well, I've been in the community since I was a young teenager. Whether it was being the Put the Guns Down ambassador for the city of Chicago, whether it was leading the Laquan McDonald movement when he was shot 16 times. And we brought forth a lot of different reforms because we were shutting down the financial districts in the city, and they were losing hundreds of millions of dollars. So we were getting very quick policies, and everyone in the state politically lost their seat because of the movements that we were leading, bringing thousands of people throughout the city each and every day together to fight against the injustices of our city. Whether it was not just leading different cases, but actually pouring back into the community. When George Floyd riots happened and those Black businesses throughout the city were looted because the mayor raised the bridges and prevented them from coming downtown. We raised $250,000 and gave it out within 5 days to get businesses back open. Also, our company, Generational Green, where we teach folks how to create generational wealth through real estate. And, there are thousands of people right now in our program, and each and every day they're closing our homes for the first time from coming through our program, fixing their credit, tax clinic, etc. Really empowering people financially. I went after the largest bank in the world a few years ago, Chase Bank, and, was banned from every Chase Bank in America because of it. But we went in and we pulled up into many branches, shut over 35 branches down over and over again for months until Chase gave back $1 billion, promised $1 billion back to the city of Chicago. So we've been in this fight, and in every angle, especially if you're a resident of our city, that my work, and Roland knows my work because he spotlighted my work. And so I just have a problem with folks who play on Twitter and play on they shows with folks and they're not actually doing the work out here to bring resources to people each and every day. There are people every day that depend on me, that I employ, that I mentor, that I invest in, that I make sure I have groceries. We're doing the actual work while he playing with his Twitter fingers.
All right. So, by the way, everybody, if you just came in, I'm speaking to Mr. Jamal Green. Jamal is he's an activist. He's a businessman. He's a young brother that cares about his community. He lives in Chicago, and that sparked my interest, particularly after he had an interesting interaction with Roland Martin. And we're going to get to that in a second. But I don't want the drama to override what's important here. What's important is that this man cares about his community, and he has a voice that definitely needs to be heard. So do me a favor, everybody, as you come in, please hit the thumbs up button, thumbs up, share, subscribe. And I'm gonna share some. So you okay? So let's get back to the events of the moment. So here's what I saw. Right. So I'm just going through Twitter, and then I see this situation where you walked up on Roland at the DNC. And just to make it clear, you weren't planning to like knock him out or nothing, right? But you just wanted to confront him and basically say, you were saying these things about me online. Let's talk about it man to man, face to face. Can you kind of talk us through that? And while you're talking, I'm gonna pull up an image of Roland's face. You captured the screenshot of his face when it was just kind of funny. But go ahead, brother. Yeah. Describe what you were thinking as you walked up to Roland at the DNC event. Why you did it? What was going on in your mind?
Well, let me say this. I told Roland I was coming. Roland knew I was coming. Everyone knew I was coming. I publicly said it on Twitter and said, I'll be at this event that you're going to be at, so we can have this conversation face to face. Now, Roland knew that. Roland saw it. Now, matter of fact, Roland blocked me. And if you go and find the tweet where he talked about how he blocked me, he said that he blocked me because I said all the coons going to be at this event that I'm going to be at. And he blocked me because I was talking about the event that we went to. And so he knew I was going to be at this event. I went in there, just to talk. Hey, we can have a conversation man to man about what happened. I sat and listened to the event. I didn't disrespect the event. I was there to hear what they had to say, which was a bunch of nothing. Roland Martin, might as well have been a lecture because he didn't listen to anybody at this event. So the event was over. They did the benediction. The pastor left. Most of the people were gone. The pastor was nowhere to be found. Everybody left. So he probably heard about this and was like, what happened? He had a few singers that were there that he was taking some pictures with. I sat there and let him take his pictures. I did not interrupt or go into this event trying to assault this man because I had ample opportunity and he didn't have security. The best security he had was the woman that he hid in front of. And so, or hid behind rather. So, I waited. He kept saying, wait a sec, or no, give me a sec. And he basically was scared trying to run. And he didn't want to have a conversation with me. And this shows that he's a grown child, because only a grown child is going to attack, go online and go on his show and attack me over and over again. Then when he see me face to face and he knows he's going to see me, not say not a word the whole time. At any point in time, he could have said, hey, I know you here to see me. Let's have a conversation. Let's go in the hallway. Let's talk. And he just sat there and put that woman in front of him and shut up like a church mouse. I mean, he's a grown child.
Well, you know what? I actually have that clip and that I actually shared it on my Instagram. My Instagram is Dr. Boyce Finance, and everybody should also follow J Mall as well. And here is the clip. I'm going to go ahead and play it. Hopefully y'all can hear the audio and you can kind of see for yourself. So here we go.
Yesterday, you tweeted you called me dumb yesterday, right? First of all, you called me dumb yesterday. Yesterday, you tweeted about you called me dumb yesterday.
Nope. Okay. Now, what I also shared, and again, I put this up on my Instagram. If everybody wants to check it out, it's also on J Mall's page on Twitter. So let me ask you this. So you were basically referencing what he said on Twitter yesterday. Let me ask you this, J Mal. So if let's say Roland did man up and didn't, the lady didn't call security and all that, and he said, okay, well, let's talk about it. What would that conversation have looked like? What conversation were you looking for in that moment?
Well, it depends on how he wanted to operate. I wasn't trying to fight him in there. The conversation is, he could have easily de-escalated this situation and said, man, hey, I know I said some of these things on Twitter and on my show. I felt that you was wrong when you was criticizing Kamala's plan or whatever he had to say. And we could have had that conversation and we could have been done with it. You get what I'm saying? And we don't have to like each other. But I think that he needs to understand that you can't utilize your platform to just be targeting people and attacking them with the verbiage that he's using. Because he could have easily said, man, I disagree with you because of X, Y, and Z, or come on my show and debate me or anything else. He's too old to be sitting on his platform finding people to attack, because I didn't come for him and I never mentioned him. And so for him to come on my platform and, attack me just when it's unprovoked and just say, oh, you dumb and you're an idiot because you don't agree with me. I think he needs to be more professional as somebody who is his age and somebody who is trying to move forward the Democratic message that he's paid to do. He should be in a way trying to figure out how he should convince me that he's right, not attacking me. And that just shows you when people say the word elder, he's not an elder, because an elder, and why I have many elders, many I talked to today, who would never in their right mind be on their platform calling young people stupid and dumb because they're not agreeing with the elders or with their thoughts. He's just an old fool to me.
That's an interesting point you make, because it is kind of awkward, when the young men are showing more maturity than the older men. That's the part that bothers me. You and I talked today, and I told you I've seen Roland behave like a buffoon for many years. I saw the way he tried to bully King Randall when he did, but King Randall, he's a Marine. You can't bully him, and he's doing, King Randall's done more work by the age of 23, 24 than half these fools have done at the age of 50, and what I really don't understand, honestly, is this chaos that happens around election season, where I know what you're fighting for. Because I'm a Chicago guy myself. I'm not born and raised, but I've been here since 2014, man. And I see what you see. I see what's going on with how they're giving more money to immigrants than they're giving to black people. I've seen where when you did that stuff with Chase Bank, where they're redlining the black communities, not making loans and giving them access to money, all this stuff that you and I mean, we see this, and the fact that you're fighting for this and you've got black people blocking you because they're trying to represent some bullshit on the Democratic plantation. That's really something to be outraged about. Like I respect you for not being angrier about it. I like the fact that you kind of brought the conversation forward, and I support that, man. And you and I talked about this today. I told you about that crazy conversation that DL Hughley and I had. I mean, DL getting on the phone, cussing me out, calling me names, and act like he gonna roll up and punch, like he really was physically threatening physical violence. And I'm like, first of all, I'm in the gym every day, so if you show, and I know karate, so you show up on me, you better bring your security, because it's not going to end well for you. But then I'm like, why are we even having a conversation like this over some Democrat Republican crap?
It's utterly insane.
Part to me, go ahead.
It's utterly insane that we can't have independent voices that speak for themselves without people being emotional about their party. I mean, that makes no sense. We black folks have been living projects. People talking about Project 2025. We've been living Project 16, 19 to 2024, because we have never moved to a decent level in America. And the fact that we literally have people who are so tied to the party that a Jamal Green can't criticize or say anything that he believes, that a Dr. Watkins can't say what he believes, without them getting in their feelings and just spewing attacks. It's insane. If we don't have independent voices We are already losing. This is what my mentor told me today, Mr. Paymon Rami. This is what he said. He said, if we have a time where people cannot speak the truth, we've already lost. If everybody was on the same page, then that's a problem. You have to have people that see things differently, to point things out that people can't see, that says, that criticize everyone in an independent fashion and not just leaning towards anyone. If you cannot have these type of voices, then we've already lost. So we gotta do better with allowing these D.L. Hughley and Ricky Smiley and all these fools who get mad at folks for being critical because we want to see more, because we know that we deserve more. That's not a problem for voices to demand more for their people. We should be doing that.
So let me ask you this, Jamal. How often do you get called a Trump supporter because you don't line up and vote for the Democrats?
You get a lot of those. Of course, you get a lot of those, and that's why I did a video and I said, listen, this is not a Trump response. This is a common sense response. See, here's the thing: it gets less and less because the very people in these communities understand where I'm coming from because they see it. They walk out their door and they see how much migrants are getting, and they can't even pay their rent. They walk out their door and they can barely eat, and they see how the city is not bringing forth them resources. So when I speak, a lot of those folks in the communities understand and they feel me. So they're not saying I'm a Trump supporter. They're saying, no, this is common sense because I'm experiencing these issues right now. And I think that that's what's important, is speaking for the unheard, right? In my city, Dr. Watkins, people don't get to have their voices heard because politicians don't come into these communities. The mayor and politicians don't come and listen to these people and understand what they're going through. And a lot of the people in power, like the mayor, are not from these communities, so they don't understand and are not as passionate about these issues. I'm passionate about them because I've experienced every issue that you can name, whether it be personally or in my family. And so that's why we must always make sure that they have a voice in this political system that drowns them out and makes them discouraged from voting.
Well, let me somebody, Darren asked a really good question just now, and he said, what's the difference? He said, you just called D.L. Hughley and Ricky Smiley fools, and Roland called you stupid. Make it make sense. Now, what I'm gonna give my response, and then I want you to respond, Jamal. So remember, he didn't go to Roland's page trying to pick a fight. He didn't go look for Roland. Roland sought him out. And then on top of that, again, Roland's the elder. Right. So I've had times where young guys got mad at me about something, but I'm not going to go act like I'm 20 something years old. It's my responsibility to set a different example. I've had people were asking me about this, man. They were like, so what would you do if somebody rolled up on you like that? I said, what are you talking about? That's happened to me many times. And I looked at, man, and my belief is simple. There's nothing I believe you should ever say about somebody on social media that you could not say to their face, looking them right in the eye. So every single person I've ever, and I have people that, that I don't get along with, or who don't get along with me. I'm going to put it, because I don't hold it. I don't keep it personal, but Umar Johnson, Kwame Brown, Roland Martin, a few guys that had issues with me. I specifically stated, I said, look, if you see me at a conference, come into a room with me, look me in the eye, and we're going to talk about this. I'm okay with that. And the idea that Roland wouldn't, that he has a lot to say on Twitter, but then when you kind of approached him, his demeanor seemed to change. That was problematic. So I'll let you answer for yourself, Jamal, but you didn't go looking for Roland. You didn't start any of this.
Correct. So one, I don't use my platform to engage in personal insults to anyone who disagrees with me. I believe in everyone having a voice. I believe that, truly. And many people I disagree with, I listen to why they view things how they view things, just to understand whether they paid to do so or whether they were raised a certain way. Everyone has their own point of view, and I think we take these things too personal. This is this is all a political game that we have no power in. And there are folks that are far richer and far powerful that really play this game on a large level that don't even speak. You don't even know who they are. Yet we have people that are literally emotional about this game, and they don't get nothing from it but a couple dollars. Just a couple, while people are really playing billion-dollar games. We know this for real. The contractors who playing billion-dollar games with this, we sitting here fighting over a couple $1,000s that you're getting in ad money and being mad at people criticizing what you're talking about. We got to do better. I don't come for people. I leave Roland alone. I don't agree with him. I don't. And if I do say anything about anyone, it's going to be criticizing what they're saying. I'm not going to call them stupid, dumb, you this, you a fool. I'm not going to do that because that's taking this game too personal. We all can be on every side of the aisle. I got Republican friends. I got Democrat friends. I got independent friends. I got people who don't vote at all. Plenty of them. And we need to be able to engage in discussion and debate. And we could do that all day long. And we may be able to come to common ground. We may not. But that don't mean that, we should be insulting each other over it. And that's what took me by shock, because Roland could have easily said, hey, I disagree with you. Come on my show and let's debate this. And what I would have said, okay, I'll do that. And I'd have been on his show and we can have a debate about the issues and not be hurling insults and seeing each other in public.
Well, it was interesting when I talked to you earlier today, Jamal Green. That's what I'm speaking to right now. I want everybody to know his name, and I'm gonna put his social media up here. And if y'all can hit the thumbs up button, by the way, and subscribe and all that stuff, that's the goal. But there's his Twitter. Follow him on Twitter.
Hey, Doc, it's JAYMAL on Twitter.
Oh, my bad, man.
Oh no, you fine. You fine.
I'm gonna right now, brother.
They gonna find me.
I'm not gonna misspell the name of the king, man. You out here doing the work, and I respect that. So let me make sure I spell this man's name right. So thank you for correcting me, brother. I was thinking about JA'MAL.
I know.
Yeah. So that was what came to mind. But one of the things that I found really interesting when you and I talked earlier is you mentioned that you actually did, and y'all need to hear this. Everybody, listen up. I'm about to tell y'all something that's real cool about this, brother. You ran for mayor of Chicago.
Yep.
At the age of 27, you ran for mayor. So in that process, first of all, I'd like to understand just what drove you to do something like that at such a young age. And then second of all, I'd like for you to, if you could reflect on some things you learned about the political game, because a lot of things you understand about how the money works and the corruption and all that.
Yes.
You're on a different level from a lot of people. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So I'm the youngest candidate to ever run for mayor of the city of Chicago. And I think that people need to understand why that's so important. In the city of Chicago, the third largest city in this country, it is very hard to make the ballot in the city. You have to move for more signatures to run for mayor than you have to run for president of the United States. 12,500 signatures. So that means that you must bring at least 3 times the amount of signatures. And we had to bring over 30-some thousand signatures just to make the ballot in 90 days. And so this is a very corrupt city. And we were able to galvanize enough grassroots support to really make an impact. And we won every single debate. I had the highest approval rate in every poll. We moved forward policies that they are still into this day trying to execute. And we beat 4 sitting elected officials who were in the race. And I think that and everyone who beat me had at least $10 million, and we didn't have one. And what it did is we were able to show that the people had a voice. And while it may be discouraging to a lot of the communities who didn't vote, that I didn't win, that I'm most popular in, they understand the impact that was made and the revolution and the uprising that's starting to happen. I ran for mayor because there is no voice for the unheard in our city. This is a corrupt city. This is a, if you know, Chicago was a mob ran city for many years. This is not a city where a person that comes from where I come from can be mayor of it. And the only black mayor, real black mayor that we had, true black mayor that we had was here in Washington, who we all know there was suspicion around his death. And now the last two mayors, Lori was from Ohio and Brandon is from Elgin. And neither one of them have ever been raised or frequented the communities of Chicago. They were both outsiders who came into the city to become mayor. So there's never had, we've never really had a long-term or just, you know, even a mayor for 5 years who actually was from our neighborhoods. And I think that it was important to make sure there was a voice in this race that actually knew the actual issues, that was good on policy, that understood finance and understood how to empower the people. And we ran an amazing campaign that garnered thousands and thousands of votes throughout this city and beat 4 sitting elected officials who had more money and they were elected.
Wow. Well, you know what? I see you winning a lot of elections in the future, man. I think it's great that you have your finger on the pulse of the problems of the city. You know, the corruption is huge. You know, you were talking to me earlier about, and I'd like for you to address some of that. What's going on in terms of the migrant issue? You know, that you know, I've never been against immigration legally, of course, but sure. If you look at what's going on with illegally, it's crazy. And for everybody that warns me about Project 2025, I bring up Project 2034. And Project 2034 is, in my view, and they don't call it this, but Project 2034 is that they allow so many people into the country, they fast track them to citizenship, they give them the right to vote, and then your black vote is worthless. Your black vote is completely diluted because you can't have enough babies to outpace the number of people that are coming across the border every year. And what's fascinating to me, J Ball, is it seems to me that they've got us voting against our own interest, like literally voting in a way that's going to destroy ourselves.
Yes.
Can you kind of speak to that in terms of what you've seen on the ground in terms of what's going on with the migrant situation in Chicago?
It is definitely happening. You know, right here in Chicago, as you know, over 7, 8 million people have come across the border over the last few years. And it's a alarming number because it hasn't been that way in years because Biden, you know, signed some orders that allowed for folks to claim asylum a little bit easier than when Trump was in office. And so they have been flooding the border every year of Biden's term. It at least been 1.2 million to 2 million people per year. And so the reason for that is because one, we've always, you know, destabilized region. We know what America does in our foreign relations and what we do to other countries. We know that, which is why we know people always try to come to America. But what has happened is a lot of folks have taken advantage of the asylum seeking orders. Carlos,
no, right? I saw that comment. I mean to distract you. It's kind of funny. He's a comedian. Go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
But what we've had was you have millions of people that are utilizing the law for their benefit. The new, you know, because they're able to come over, claim asylum, and then go into sanctuary cities and receive all of these resources. And what's happening is they're making phone calls saying, "Hey, you need to get to the border and make it here." And that has really driven a lot of folks over the border. And then what happened is the Republican governors who were forced to take care of them in Texas and Florida and other cities, what they've done is they said, listen, we got millions of migrants coming into our states and we got to take, because the federal government is not, people not understanding, federal government is not expending majority of these expenses. The states and the cities are. And so it'll be a different situation if the federal government was paying for this, but they're not. They're giving a very small percentage of incentives and resources to cities who take on folks who come across the border. And so what's happened is the governor said, hey, I'm sending these folks to sanctuary cities since y'all love these policies so much, which was a brilliant plan. And whether Democrat or Republican, I think would be a brilliant plan in my view of putting mayors to the test to say, since y'all sanctuary city, then y'all can have them because we spending a lot of money over here. And that's what has happened in Chicago. Our mayor has welcomed them with open arms. And he has taken money from the COVID fund. We still had COVID dollars left over. He took tens of millions of dollars from the COVID fund. You know, now we're at $1 billion deficit in this city right now. And so over the next couple months, they're going to be raising our taxes because we have spent city dollars, hundreds of millions of city dollars on this crisis. And now we're in a deficit. And now the city is going to raise our taxes because they are taking care of them. When they come here, they get shelters. We're spending over $1 million in shelters each and every day. We're spending millions on food. We gave a $125 million contract to feed them and put $17 a day to feed them 3 times a day. The state has a program to give them 6 months of free rent up front. And so they've spent over $50 million in free rent for the last 18 months. The county is spending money on county care for health care. The city is spending money on child care and transportation to transport them around to school and to stores and to watch their children. We are literally pouring billions of dollars. We're well over $1 billion over the last 12 to 18 months. We're at least at $2 billion that we have spent on this crisis, while yet people in these communities have been begging for resources. 20,000 homeless youth, veterans that are homeless. We have been begging for the buildings that are vacant in our community to be turned into something, but they use those buildings for shelters for the migrant situation. When you see what has happened in the agenda that is unfolding, and then on top of that, our governor has signed a bill to allow immigrants to be police officers, to allow them to have driver's licenses. And so there is an agenda here. And that if Black people don't understand what's at stake, if Black people don't build economic power and rebuild Black Wall Streets and build political power so that we can have voices in these seats, if Black people don't start to buy land and buy homes and really take heed to what's going on, we will not have economic power or political power in this country. And if you think the racial wealth gap is large and keep getting larger, it is going to be the largest it has ever been over this next decade.
Wow. Well, you know, it's interesting. I'm really proud of Black Chicago because we're one of the few cities that's really gone out of its way to say this is BS. You know, you're doing all this stuff right in front of our faces. You know, these are resources that you've denied us for many, many years. Now you're giving it to people who just got here. That's not going to fly. And I don't see the same level of outrage in other major cities. New Yorkers are fighting a little bit too.
Yeah, they're fighting.
So I almost feel like,
but
Black. Oh, go ahead, please. Please say, brother.
You know, I want our listeners to be educated on this piece right here. Because it started in Chicago when a lot of this agenda happened. And guess who was the culprit? The top political, financial guru, Rahm Emanuel. Rahm Emanuel, when he was mayor, I want y'all to look this up. Y'all can look it up while we're talking. Go look up 2011, Office of New Americans. The Office of New Americans was created in this city in 2011. We were the first city to do so. That office was the same office that they started piloting in other cities. And Joe Biden, 8 days into office, created an Office of New Americans on the federal level 3 years ago. And so I want y'all to understand that the agenda for Office of New Americans in our city and nationwide is to coordinate all of the departments to enhance the lives of folks who come here. Now, when they created the Office of New Americans, I said, well, why we don't have an Office of Black Americans? Why don't we coordinate all of the offices for the people who have been suffering the most and had the most trauma? We're not coordinating all the offices to make sure they have jobs and they have priority of resources. But we have an Office of New Americans that prioritizes anyone who from another country into our city, it is all of the departments in our city must coordinate efforts to make sure they have housing, to make sure they have jobs, to make sure they have stipends, they get a priority of resources because of this Office of New Americans. And now it's on the federal level with a $150 billion budget. Go and look and read these PDF plans. You can look them up on Google. We should have our own office for people who have suffered here, ancestors that have suffered here, the folks who have been in these communities. They've been redlined. They've got no justice for being redlined all these years. The home ownership rate has never increased for Black folks. We've been at 40% since FHA was created. We have literally still the racial wealth gap has continued to increase. But you mean to tell me you don't have an office of Black Americans for folks who are actually have been suffering here and been treated terribly by their government and by the financial institutions to coordinate an effort to enhance their lives? That's the slap in the face. And I want people to go and educate and read the Office of New American. Try to read it.
Wow. Well, everybody who's listening, I'm speaking with Jamal Green, and Jamal Green is he was brought to my attention after what happened with Roland Martin, and you guys can go check out that video. It's online, but I want to move past that because this man is far greater than just one incident. And the reason I invited you in here, man, is because I wanted people to know about all the work that you're doing and also hear your side of the story in terms of what happened with Roland. I mean, and of course, Roland and I haven't talked since he got mad at me in 2011 or something. He sent me a big old long text message because he was pissed off at me, and I just said, "Okay, I can't tweet that much. My thumbs get tired." Right. But still, though, even if Roland has something to say or he had a perspective, he'd be welcome to come in and share that point of view. I have nothing against him. At the same time, I like the fact that you are at least giving us. Your type of leadership has given us an opportunity to branch out as a community, right? Nothing wrong with being pro-Democrat, nothing wrong with being pro-Republican. But remember, being pro-Democrat and being pro-Republican ain't always the same as being pro-Black.
Correct.
Sometimes
not at all.
Right, exactly. And I think that we're starting to see the difference. And so people like yourself, in my view, are the difference makers. You know, you're the ones that are going to help the world to help us be a little bit freer. Because there's nothing free about everybody being forced to vote for the same politicians.
Exactly.
Nothing free. That's not freedom. So let me ask you this final question, man, before you bounce out of here, brother. Or we both bounce out. So when you become mayor of Chicago, and I'm gonna when you run, I'm gonna give you a full. And I don't just because you check my record, man. I tell people all the time, I don't endorse politicians. I don't. I make an exception, like with Cornel West. His vice president's gonna come into my platform a couple of days, and because I just love the guy. He's a good man. But
he's been an amazing man to me many years too. So he's a very good guy.
Very good brother. Yeah. And the Kennedy guy wanted to come in and sit where you sit. And I said, nah, that's a waste of fucking time. I don't want to do that shit. But I'm gonna back you, man. So when you become mayor of Chicago, what's that administration gonna look like?
You know what? We need common sense government in our city. And I think that we play too much on who's left and who's right. The reason Brandon won, he got to the top two where they saw the white guy as right and racist, and they saw him as Black and progressive. And they were wrong about both of them, right? And I think that we got to stop playing into these labels and where you link. We need common sense government, and that's what local government is about. Local government ain't about Republican, Democrat. In Chicago, we're nonpartisan, so you don't even have to declare a party, right? It's about making sure that the people in his city have the resources and the quality of life they deserve. We have some of the highest taxes in this country right here in Illinois. And the fact that the quality of life for people in these neighborhoods, that they walk outside that door and they don't have a store for miles living in food deserts, that they walk outside that door and they walking past abandoned buildings that ain't been touched in 10, 20 years, abandoned lots that ain't been touched in 20 years, is that they can do their funded.
Oh, looks like the Illuminati got him.
In
They're
their
messing with your,
neighborhoods is
the
where it
Illuminati's
is.
messing with your
And
Wi-Fi, brother. Sorry, can you repeat that
oh
last part
shoot.
you just said?
Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah.
My
Go
bad.
ahead, please. That's
Roland
all right.
Roland Martin messing my Wi-Fi up. The fact is um is where is insane. Folks need to be empowered to rebuild their communities, and I believe that, number one, which is why I presented the plan to have the first public bank in Chicago, where it can actually focus on the neighborhoods that have been disinvested the most. Which is why I said if you develop a city property a lot within a year, that you can get a 10-year tax freeze. We should make it easier for businesses to open up within 60 days. We got to empower those people in the communities who've been here to rebuild their communities. And I think that's important, and because the economic agenda is the most important agenda. Because you go in Lincoln Park, they got 75% plus homeowners that own their properties. You see a totally different story. You see mass development. You see business, thriving business corridors. You see the best neighborhood schools. We got to duplicate that all across the city. And that's going to be making sure that folks can do so economically. And that's what the mayor of Chicago needs to do.
Yes. All right. All right. Well, everybody, give a digital round of applause for this brother, Jamal Green. I'm specifically asking y'all to go to Twitter and go follow the brother. We're going to get him galvanized and supported so that when he runs for Chicago mayor and eventually when he wins, he will be in a position to help make a difference. I believe in what you're doing, brother, and I have a lot of respect for you. So thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. Oh, looks like his screen is frozen. Can you hear me, brother? You know what? The Illuminati's messing with Jamal's Wi-Fi again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye to everybody. I'm going to pull Jamal down. Hey, brother. Thank you for coming in. And we're going to head on out. So God bless y'all. And don't forget that tomorrow morning, I'm doing free financial consciousness training. We do this every single morning at 10 a.m. Eastern. If you'd like to join us and get an invitation to join us for class for free, we do this 7 days a week. Text the word morning, MORNING, to 87948. Text the word morning to the phone number 87948. And also, Jamal, I think he's listening backstage. So I had to pull you down, brother, because the Wi-Fi went bad. But I want to go ahead and publicly mention that I'd like to invite Jamal to come join us at the All Black National Convention. I'd love for him to be on stage and join a panel. So if you are available, October 25th through the 27th, brother, I would love to have you there because I think your perspectives need to be heard, and I support it 100%. So anybody who wants to join us at the convention is going to be in Lombard, Illinois, right outside Chicago, October 25th through the 27th at the Westin Hotel. You can get more information at allblacknationalconvention.com. That's allblacknationalconvention.com. You can come if you're a Democrat, Republican, gay, straight, male, female, young, old, rich, poor, educated, uneducated, as long as you're black first. So if you're black first, then that is the place for you. We are there to solve our community's problems, and J-Ball is a problem solver, and that's why I'm extending this invitation to you, brother. I hope you can make it. So everybody have a good night. God bless you, and we'll see you soon. Take care now.